Okay, well, we're going to try this a little lower tech using the iPhone in the short term while we get the rest of it up. So this meeting is now called to order. Welcome to our May board meeting, and thank you for being here. Ms. Gaynor, please introduce our visitors.
Oh, I'm just giving my skills to the test today, but let's see. We're going to start back here with Katia Guillaume from Channel 3. Charles Fraser is one of our students. Lana Sweeten Schultz is a reporter from the Times Record News. Maria Pena is our incoming SGA president. Dr. Scott Meadow. Up here we have Barry Maka, our general counsel. Lee Kidwell with our internal audits. Vice President Marilyn Follet, Associate Vice President Kyle Owen, Cristobal, our controller, Vice President Tony Vidmar. I'm going to flip over here to this corner. It's Ian Klein with News Channel 6. We have Dr. David Carlston, Kyle Owen, our interim athletic director, a community member, George Adams. We have Kurt Knobloch from American National Bank, as well as Linda Wilson, Dr. James Johnston, our provost, Vice President Keith Lamb. I'm running out of air. And we have Angie Ray, probably with the staff senate today. We have Debbie Vaughn, who's internal auditor, Shayla Owens, who is our outgoing SGA president, and Mr. Jeff Schultz with American National Bank, Samaria Terry with Channel 3. Yes. And then we have Catherine Prose and Emily Reeves with our faculty, and Tammy Dean, who is we're at Student Development and Orientation.
Well done. Well, Dr. Shipley, I believe you have a special introduction to make today.
Yes, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. James Johnston. Thank you. As our new Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, he was hired after a national search that went on in the spring semester. And you may know him from the Gun College, where he's been the dean for several years. But you may not know that he is an alum of Midwestern State University, receiving both his bachelor's and his master's degree from our Radiological Sciences Department. He has a PhD in the Health Sciences from our sister institution, Texas Women's University. He's been named a Fellow of the American Society of Radiologic Technologists in 2012 and has been the interim provost for about 6 months since his departure. We're very happy to recognize him today and look forward to working with him. Welcome, James.
Well, Dr. Johnson, congratulations on your appointment. We look forward to working with you. Lee, you also have a special introduction to make?
I do. Thank you. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce Debbie Vaughn. She's the new staff internal auditor, but she's not new to Midwestern State. She was definitely the most qualified and best suited for the position. I'm so glad to have her in my department. Debbie's been with the university since 2008, working in the business office. She most recently held the position of senior budget analyst before she transferred to the Office of Internal Audits. She received her bachelor's in accounting from Oklahoma State in 2005 and her MBA from Midwestern in 2013. I want to thank the Regents for having the foresight 2 years ago for approving the addition of this position, and just want to know that this position is going to allow the internal audit function to better fulfill its fundamental role of supporting the administration, management, and the board in achieving the university's objectives. And I can't think of a better way to celebrate Internal Auditors Week as proclaimed by our own Governor Greg Abbott. So thank you for your time, and thank you, Debbie, for having brave enough to join me in internal audit.
Well, Ms. Vaughn, that is near and dear to our hearts, so welcome. We're glad to have you aboard and look forward to working with you in your new capacity. As a reminder, this meeting is going to be streamed live on the internet. It is being streamed live on the internet. So please silence your devices. I'm going to take heed to that because I didn't do it. Yeah. Also, in case anybody was looking for Dr. Gibbons couldn't be with us today. He had a conflict, so we will have that committee being chaired by Ms. Marks. Okay, so as the chairs at the end of the table are for those who will make presentations or answer questions during the meeting. Please sit or stand there or speak up so that you can be heard online. We provide an opportunity for public comment concerning agenda items at the beginning of each meeting, and no one has signed up to speak, so we will move on with our agenda. Item 17-71, investment update. American National Bank oversees the investment of the university's endowment funds. Dr. Foley, please introduce our guest from American National.
Sure. So I'm glad to have Jeff Schultz here today with his colleagues Linda Wilson and Kurt Knobloch, as introduced. They'll be going over, we have over $8 million invested with American National of our endowed funds. So that's what they'll be discussing with you today. You should have received the materials in your handouts. And Jeff will be going through some slides to discuss the returns. So, Jeff?
Great. I'm actually going to let Linda start us off. That's all right.
Thank you again for your time and the opportunity to meet with you. It's always a delight to come on campus and see old friends and meet new faces. This is a real privilege to serve as a relationship manager. That is my role, and that's why I'm starting with remarks. I've had the honor of working as a relationship manager through a trust association with Midwestern State University now since I think it was '87 with the start of the Midwestern Charitable Trust. And then these funds came on board approximately 10 years ago. It's my role to be kind of the gatekeeper, provide information, be your advocate with Jeff and the investments, help interpret what you tell me or I perceive your needs are, your goals, and your mission. And I just want to take a minute today to tell you how important our relationship, your relationship, our relationship together is. You're so very important to us. Cindy, if you'll show the first slide, or oh, do I need to click? Not only are we physical neighbors on Midwestern Parkway, but now we're going to be neighbors in Flower Mound as well with our facilities. I understand you all are going to be right across the street from our branch in Flower Mound, Texas. But more importantly, there's some very personal relationships. 3.5 out of 10 of our employees have attended, are graduates of, or are current Midwestern students. And if you drew that out, I know I've had a discussion with you already with people in this room. If you took that spouses, children, grandchildren, my assistant's grandson is going to be signing with the band Monday at his band banquet. So there's that very close personal tie. And on other levels too, because of that personal tie, I think we realize how much Midwestern contributes to the success of the community. Our successes as institutions are entwined. The talent pool you provide for us, what you do for our customers, as you prosper, and Wichita Falls prospers, the bank prospers. And we want to help continue that, not just in this official role as investment manager, but more importantly, we have awarded $536,000 in scholarships because things that happen, as you all know, with students, 337 of those have been funded, so we help support students on campus. Now, back to the point of what we're really here for, to talk specifically about the endowment funds. I do want to say, when we approach our investment management with Midwestern, I think we take what we know from that relationship, what we know about you and your values. We feel very personally accountable to you in what we do and what we try to bring in applying our investment process to specifically this relationship. We do have a disciplined process. Jeff can speak more to that, both for our buy and sell positions. We will keep a portfolio of approximately 50 to 60 positions. We feel like that is enough to give you a good range and underpinning of diversification, but also it's a number that's manageable for us to monitor and maintain our research and understanding of what is going on within those assets. We do take absolute or total return approach to the portfolio, especially in these days when interest rates have been so difficult and challenging. We're going to consider the relative contribution of capital appreciation as well as dividend and interest income. We believe that asset allocation is a huge driver, obviously, of performance, and we are investing portfolio with a growth with income investment objective. The investment objective dictates the asset allocation. This is in keeping with the endowment funds investment policy guidelines that this Board of Regents has adopted that we look at. And you will see we are very closely aligned on the actual for each asset class with our target under that investment objective. We allow plus or minus 5% tolerance range, and we're certainly within that on all of these allocations. And now I'm going to ask Kurt to come talk more about the fixed income.
Thank you, Linda. So I don't know what happened with the values on the last page, but Linda's correct. And so in the fixed income portion of this, we have a growth with income. The target is generally 65% in the equity portion and 32% in the fixed side. So out of that fixed side, so we have April 16, which was last meeting, Regents meeting last April, December 16, December of 2016, and then current would be since the end of April. And so in the fixed income portfolio, we maintain roughly 8 positions or so of bonds in that, and we look for always credit quality in bonds, and bonds being so sensitive to interest rates, and especially climbing interest rates, that I have not seen in my lifetime. That was good. Okay. So the duration we speak of and is 1% change, an increase in interest rates of 1% affects the bond portfolio a little above 3. So 3.2% would be a negative relationship. And that's a lower duration than you might find in certain bond funds, ETFs available on the market, because we are with the of rising interest rates, just the implication that we've had federal funds rate rise by 0.25%, and if things move up by 1%, as the Fed and many other investors have spoken of, this helps us be hedged against that. And also, so the yield to maturity has gone up by 30 basis points from the chart under yield and analytics. And in the S&P rating, we only choose investment grade bonds. And so speculative grade is anything below BBB. And so we did have one bond that fell below that, and so it may seem that some current yield falls. When a bond falls below investment grade, it becomes speculative, and also the yield and coupons go up. But your default risk also increases. And to align with the mission here, we also want to keep a good rounded ratings. And to talk about the equity portion, and so thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. So my name is Jeff Schultz again, and I can do it.
Okay.
These are general portfolio characteristics of the other 65% of the portfolio and relative to the S&P 500. And so what you can see is on a forward basis, we got a little bit higher of a PE ratio or price earnings ratio. If you look at the historical relationship, ours is a bit less. So we're looking at more companies that have been around a while. Typically, they pay a higher dividends, larger capitalization. And so you can see that return on assets in aggregate is around 6.3%, return on equity at 20%. Here you see the dividend yield is a bit higher, and then where you really see, the types of companies that we're in. You look at the size, 113 billion versus 86 for the market for the individual issues. Beta is about the market, and standard deviation is close to the volatility that we generally see in the market for the S&P 500. So this is the benchmark returns, and this is through April. So it gives the last month, the fiscal year to date, last 12 months, and the report period. So for this period, for the last 12 months since we saw you last, we were up 10.1% versus 11.8%. I can go into a few of the reasons where we're at. This past year, we saw the S&P 500 increase almost 18%. Since November 8th, it's returned 12.5%. So most of that run-up has been since the election. Who would have thought a year ago we'd have 3 candidates for the Republican nomination, and what happened with the election was a surprise to me as well as many others. So not saying it was good or bad, it was just a surprise. It was just unanticipated and just didn't know for sure where this was going to end up. But we've seen quite a run-up I think what's happening now is you're starting to see the implementation of policies are a little bit more problematic. And so we're seeing not much of a reaction from the bond market. So as Kurt talked about, rising interest rates, we saw them initially take off. We've seen them change about 70 basis points since last year at this time for 5-year and 10-year securities on the Treasury curve. But, trying to execute the policies, that's going to be the challenge for President Trump, as we saw with healthcare, and now we're talking about tax codes. And so that'll be the real big issue. As far as the benchmarks go for the last 12 months, before I get into that, I want to point out one thing. We had a market value last year at May 1st of $8.3 million, with distributions and fees, management fees. We distributed out $239,000 from the endowment fund. The net change in the market value is over $800,000, and the ending market value at April 28th was almost $8.9 million. So we've been able to accomplish what the goal of the university pulling money out and still maintain that value. So with the benchmarks, I can attribute that to 4 really things on it. We use the Vanguard small cap ETF for the small cap portion of the portfolio, and its benchmark is actually the Russell 2000. So there's about 16 basis points there. We use also the EPA index with Vanguard, and it's difference about 12 basis points because that index includes everything but Canada and U.S., whereas the benchmark just excludes the U.S. And so that was another 12 basis points. One thing we've talked about in the past, made you aware of, we have an investment in a real estate investment trust. And last year, in 2016, we saw cap rates. They had been declining, and so they increased the value of the REIT, the real estate investment trust. But during the year, we saw those cap rates reverse, and so that declined the value of the REIT. And so we went ahead and marked down the REIT value about 25% over this past year. But I'd like you to know that we have also had a 25%, we still have maintained a 25% appreciation in the investment, and feel like going forward that's still a good place to be. And with the index, you have a REIT that has a lot of different asset classes in it. This particular REIT has one particular style of investment. So that's part of the reason there, and that's about 50 basis points. And the other side is on the large cap equities for the balance. And that's primarily because we're utilizing, like I said, more large cap value stocks. And the market tends to, when it's rising, it goes more for the growth names. And so that's the difference between growth and value. And what we're trying to set up for is really what the potential downside risk is, because as we've said, since November, we've had a significant increase in the equity market, but it's starting to look like it's a little frothy here in this particular part of the cycle. Typically, May through the summer is not a good time to be in the market. We tend to see market declines during this time period. So we'll be more vigilant is our objective going forward with the portfolio. And we're not to be more vigilant, but just be ready for changes coming down. And so in summary, these are some of the things that we're watching and monitoring as far as the portfolio goes. Like I said, we have more defensive names. They're large cap dividend paying stocks. Unsure about the bond market, what's going to happen. It's hard to reach out and get yield because even if we reach out and get it and interest rates go up, then the value of the bonds will decline. And we're in a really low inflation environment. And so coming up is really the unknown about tax code. So Sean might have some ideas about what's going to happen next. Like to do that. And like I said, the famous saying of sell in May and go away. And so we'll anticipate, maintaining the current portfolio duration of the portfolio and as far as the returns go. But it's been a really interesting market, just what's happened with the election and not knowing really, having any clear direction about what's going to happen next. And so we have kept the portfolio fully invested based on the allocation and anticipate not really making a change there. We will be, as time goes on, we do take, things that have run up and have a good run, pull some of that money off the table just to maintain our allocation because we don't want to get caught with a sudden downdraft in the market, you can be stuck with some unrealized losses going forward. So that's what I have.
Any questions?
Good. So on behalf of American National Bank and Linda and Kurt and I'd like to thank you for having us today. And as always, you are welcome to contact us, contact Linda with any specific questions, and we'd be happy to address those. So thank you.
I know that's a challenge, so thank you all for being here today. Moving on to item 17-72, naming of the journalism lab. The administration is recommending the naming. The recommendation is in board effect, and also a copy is also in your folder. Mr. Vidmore, please present this recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the chairman mentioned, the administration is recommending that the journalism lab room DO2 be named after Mr. Honeywell. Mr. Chris Honeywell, let me tell you a little bit about him. He is a graduate of Midwestern State University in December 2001. His major was mass communications, and he received a Bachelor of Arts degree. While a student at Midwestern, Mr. Honeywell was very much involved in the life of the Mass Comm department. He served on the Mass Comm Club, the Media Club, and also the Wichita staff. Mr. Honeywell has met the monetary guidelines for this suggested name. Any questions?
Before we discuss further, could I have a motion to approve the naming of the Chris Honeywell journalism lab? A second? Any discussion or questions from Mr. Vidmore in relation to this? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next items will be discussed in executive session later this afternoon, and the committee of the whole stands in recess until that time. We'll now move on to regular committee business. The executive committee will come to order. Members of the committee joining me today are Mr. Crosno, Ms. Marks, and Ms. Burks. Our first item is 17-74, approval of the minutes of the executive committee meeting February 9th. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they will stand approved as presented. Item 17-75, strategic plan update. This morning we will have an update on the strategic planning process. Dr. Shipley will begin the conversation, and she'll be followed by Dr. Scott Meadow. Dr. Shipley.
Thank you. Board, you may remember that last February we met, or February a year ago, we met and had a retreat to decide upon our 4 strategic objectives by which we would move forward over the next 5 to 6 years. And after that approval by you of those objectives, we called together a strategic planning committee, and Betty Stewart launched the committee with the significant help of Dr. Scott Meadow. And when Betty left, Dr. Meadow continued his work with the committee, and I was delighted with the presentation that they gave me at the end of their work, and they're going to come to us today and go through their representation of the goals that we have for the next century. I'd like to point out that I'm having you look at this for the first time in this meeting so that you can raise any questions with the committee while they're here. But we will come back to you in our August meeting, and we will attach a budget and an action plan and a timeline to the plan that they're putting before you, because this will not be a plan that sits without action. It will be a plan that we act upon. And the best way to do that is put it with a budget and a timeline and put people in charge of it. So today is your chance to dialogue with this committee that's done such great work on this plan. And then we'll have another meeting after which I hope you will approve the strategic plan, and then we'll be moving toward the future with it. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Before I begin the actual presentation, which I have kept deliberately short to encourage questions, there are a number of people in the room to acknowledge Dr. Johnson, Dr. Paulson, student. We've got to point out our student, Charles Frazier. Where's Dr. Emily Reeves? Back. And Catherine Prose. And Cammie Dean. So partial members of the committee. I'll get into some of the details. Thank you. No.
Do you want to do it? Are you good?
Sure.
Okay, great. If it works.
So presentation itself can be very brief. We'll talk a little bit about the committee. You've heard some of the names. just want to acknowledge the number of people involved and the level of effort and time commitment. Very briefly, in terms of the process we went through, it was a months-long adventure. Lots of very good information gathered, excellent conversations, all of which was distilled down into a document that sits in your folders that we're not going to read. I hope that's okay. Okay, so the committee. It's a diverse group representing the entire campus. And one thing to point out is just wasn't us talking amongst ourselves, but rather reaching out to people who held information throughout, again, the campus, all levels, the community itself, in terms of information and input. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. So the starting point, as mentioned, was the New Century Strategic Initiatives, Building a Vibrant Future for Midwestern State University. The committee itself was established May of 2016, just before the end of the semester. So that allowed everybody several months just to think about things, right? No, we came back in August and began in earnest. And from August to December 2016, the 4 subcommittees worked to develop a set of tactics and tasks for each of those initiatives put forward in that planned document. Committee associated with the first, promoting a strong university community, aggressively pursuing new student populations, creating a destination residential university, and stimulating a culture of engagement. These subcommittees met almost weekly. Some met more often than that as necessary. And again, it was bringing people in, talking to people across the campus, across the community, to get the information needed to come up with some specific, measurable, and doable tasks and tactics that supported those strategic initiatives. So, each committee developed and explored tactics and tasks. As necessary, reached out not just to administration, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and community, but also reached out to available sources of data. Internal surveys that have been conducted in terms of students and faculty, external surveys, and compilations of information, and so on. It was a fairly exhaustive look at what information would support, again, a series of doable tactics and tasks, along with then how could those be measured and what other considerations were appropriate. And that's what you find in detail in the document. Within each subcommittee, a finalization effort was made. At that point, which brings us basically to the beginning of this year, we began a mode of full committee discussion where we met several times as a full committee to discuss, review, question, challenge, and further explore each of those sets of tactics and tasks that the subcommittees came up with. So another round of, are these in fact doable? Are these in fact measurable? Will they have an impact? Finally, in, March 8th to be exact, that plan was presented to Dr. Shipley by way of presentation. There were a number of small, that was good news, small modifications, I think 2 to be exact. And that's the plan that you now have in front of you. Now the tactics and tasks range from what it is called here small, quick, relatively low cost to large, longer time frame and higher cost. And here are just some of the low end or shorter time period, lower cost tactics and tasks. Okay? Promote our mission and promote it actively to all of the stakeholders. Get it out in front of everyone. Make it part of our daily lives, part of the community. Create a bridge program. Help orient, in particular, first-generation college students. Helps to retain. Develop and implement a first-year experience that emphasizes the liberal arts mission. Tie back to the first bullet. And then another one that, within this relatively low end, work with the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce to increase our student personal and professional involvement by increased 4-credit internships. And this is an example where we've added a specific goal, 5%, in a specific time frame. Some of the high-end examples, infrastructure. In this case, infrastructure consisting of staff, delivery platforms, and so on, to build and sustain academic programs in multiple locations. Very simple statement, but there's a lot behind that. Expanding Academic Center, which is student advising and mentoring center, providing centralized tutoring, supplemental instruction advising, basically a one-stop approach. The efficiency and the advantages that go along with efficiency. Increased 6-year graduation rates, again, some specific goals and time frame, so we can look back and see to what extent this strategic plan is being executed. And then, again, higher end, secure funding, begin construction of the Fine Arts Theater and an athletic stadium for more than just football, for all of athletic events. So we went from this as our starting point, a very simple 2-page document, and we ended up with more than 2 pages. And my apologies for that. But I hope as you read that and look at that, you'll appreciate the time and effort that went into it, as well as our focus on, again, doability and then adding the measurability factors to it. And with that, deliberately kept short, so if there are a few high-level questions, there are plenty of people gathered who can help answer.
Are there any additional questions?
I don't have a question, but I've got a couple of comments. May I? First of all, I'm really excited about this because as I sat down at that end of the table a few years ago, I sat in this room and said, we need something like this. So thank you guys for putting this together. I've read through it. It looks great. The things that Dr. Shipley is doing in connection with fundraising and tying this together, right on point. So I absolutely am thrilled to death and think it looks fantastic. If there's some tweaks that need to be made, sure, absolutely. But as a document, a living document, it's fantastic. I will point something else out too. And I've done this before, but my daughter's involved with Mary Hardin Baylor. She's the head of academic advising there. They created a bridge program for first gen this year. Their retention rate is off the charts with first gen because of the bridge program. So I'm a huge proponent of that. So, okay, I'll get off my soapbox.
Great comment. Anyone else?
I do. I have a couple of comments as well. I'm particularly pleased that you are re-emphasizing our mission and our vision, and that will be brought up forward, for every time that you're presenting to us. The COPLAC outlined the 6 values as well. I would love to see that. I know that's very similar to your our liberal arts outline is too, especially where it's educating the whole person, and I do think that's extremely important. Because it's a living document, I know that it will, hopefully you will be looking at it maybe not daily, but perhaps as often as you can. And I would hope that we would have someone that would come regularly to tell us where we are after it is adopted and tell us some of the changes or whatever. But again, it is a living document. We recognize that. We recognize there will be changes, but really would appreciate a regular update that is scheduled.
Great comments. Thank you, Dr. Meadow. So Dr. Shipley mentioned this item was presented for information only and input only. The final plan will be presented to the board for approval in August. We'll move on to item 17-76, campus construction update. The board book includes project status reports and a report on smaller construction projects. Kyle has photographs of current projects to share with us. Take it away, Kyle.
Can you help finding it? Okay. Oops.
Okay, we'll start with the Central Campus Sidewalks project. I know this is kind of a busy drawing, but really all I'm trying to point out is this is legacy that's kind of backward up. all the black is the sidewalk we added with this project, as well as several light fixtures. This is probably the best view of it. I don't have a drone to be able to take that whole area, but this is the best view looking from Killingsworth down on it. This is where we were prior to the last board meeting, and this is where we are now. So it's virtually complete. The only thing that's left is actually, over this cross Comanche, there's an ADA parking lot we're putting in. It's about 90% done. It should be done here next week or two. The MassCom building, this is where we were right at a year ago. Still trying to get utilities underground, and this is where we are now. We took possession of the building in mid-September, February, and we've been putting in about $1.3 million worth of new electronic equipment for the MassCom use. And actually yesterday we had substantial completion inspection for the equipment, and over the next month they'll go through training, and they should be ready for classes in August. Just to give you a little idea of what the building looks like, that's one of the classrooms, an edit bay, and the control room. If you happen to have gone through Fine Arts in the last few years, to look at what they have, you would go, wow, this is very impressive. It's like night and day compared to what they used to have. Before I show you the rest of it, I want to kind of explain a little bit of the dominoes that fall with the others. As you know, we've taken out 3 houses on Hempstead and creating a parking lot that will go in over the summer, be ready in August. We've been renovating the western part or eastern part of West Campus Annex, so the trio, the occupants of McGahey, can move into there actually next week. And then starting June 1st, we will abate and then demo the McGahey building. And that's in preparation for the health science building that will go in that right where it's located, as well as the parking lot west of McCoy and the laydown area. That construction will start more like mid-September time frame. And then the other items aren't necessarily funded at the moment, but the plan would be to move the police station over to 2527, that far western house that we have. The parking lot would be installed in 2525. We actually went ahead and demoed that as part of this project. We had included as an alternate for the bidding. The price was too good bad shape. I mean, the gutter was falling off the back. We had an empty pool that's kind of a disaster waiting to happen. A window had fallen off in the back because the sill was so rotted out it needed to be torn down. Very probably happy with bids. But then once the parking lot installed and the police have moved over to the new facility, their old building will be torn down, and that remaining part of the lot will be filled in to create about another 35 parking spaces. And then once health science building is occupied and Broodwell is renovated, so this is 2020 time frame, and the inhabitants of counseling have moved to Broodwell, then we'll tear down counseling center and probably the parking lot will go in that area. And with that being said, now let's kind of go back to where we were. This is a parking lot project. It's pretty much wall-to-wall concrete from each corner with some lights in the middle of it. It's being designed so that we could extend it to the house to the east and two to the west without having to tear up any of this lot to do so. This is where we were a month ago, and this is where we are now. We actually started the concrete construction this week, and again, it should be ready by the fall semester. West Campus Annex, the old Christ Academy building. Several years ago, that's not shown here, but on the west end of that, we did some renovations for the football administration. Now we're doing the east end of it for the trio. And This is what it looked like back in October. It's pretty much 1960s vintage school building. Nothing very impressive. But we upgraded it to meet fire code and Texas accessibility standards. We weren't really looking for aesthetics unless it happened to work out that way. However, we did end up putting in some flooring, painted all the walls. All the doors had to be replaced to meet fire code. Half of them had to be widened to meet Texas accessibility standards. So you could see it added a coat of paint to do world wonders for it. So, that's it. Any questions?
Well, if no one has questions related to this item is presented for information only and no action is necessary. Item 17-77, the DFW expansion update. Dr. Lamb, please provide us with an update.
Good afternoon. So on DFW, since the last time we met in February, the timeline on the facility itself has changed. There was a delay in getting the construction started from the developer's end, but construction is now underway. There are the underground utilities are in, the pad is in, they're working on the foundation. They expect delivery to us in December of this year, and so we should be good at this point with the current timeline for January. So far, they've not used any weather days, and so we look to be in good shape for a December delivery for a January opening of that facility. Nevertheless, we are offering courses this fall. They're largely online and hybrid, and our partner NCTC is allowing us to utilize their facilities of 1 or 2 times the classes meet on location, and so that seems to be going well. One of the things that we're looking at for our health science programs under Dr. Johnston's leadership is what we call parts of term, and so our radiology program, our respiratory program, and our nursing program, we will essentially do accelerated types of terms that will allow an individual to complete from, for example, from an RN to a BSN in a specified time frame of about 10 to 12 months. And be able to give them a fixed cost for that. And so we feel that's very marketable in that region. We feel that will be very attractive to hospitals and other employers in that area where the baccalaureate is increasingly the entry-level degree. We will also offer, as you all know, education in our BAAS program. We're actually getting quite a bit of interest in our BAAS program right now down there. So we're getting some hits on that, so that looks good. Marketing-wise, right now, and Ms. Gaynor has largely led this effort, but we have billboards going, movie theater ads going, social media geofencing. So certain areas in DFW, you will see our ads for Flower Mound pop up on geofencing, largely like airports, DFW Airport. I've gotten quite a few comments from folks traveling through there, hospitals, healthcare facilities, places that make sense with the degrees that we're offering. Our direct mail campaign is going good there. We purchased about 148,000 names within a 10 to 15 mile radius of the Flower Mound campus of adults who have some college but no baccalaureate degree. And so we are actively engaging them in a direct mail campaign. Director, we actually finished interviewing for yesterday for the director position, and so we hope to have decisions made in the near future on that and get that individual on board. Again, our good partner NCTC has allocated an office for that individual on their campus that will be our eyes and ears there to not only help start up these programs and form the relationships in the communities, but also help us oversee construction down there. At this time, our planned staffing includes the director, a generalist position, an IT professional, and a secretary. We will also hire, or we are advertising right now for faculty lines in nursing and respiratory care. That is my DFW update. Any questions?
Well, I have one. Part of that strategy, it seems like we're really growing students from JCs, community colleges, like, where are we doing anything with our marketing plan in relation to targeting those specifically in the metro area? Or?
Yeah, the geofencing is pretty much in visits. Okay, so for example, our faculty in nursing and respiratory in particular have a number of contacts at the hospitals that they have been visiting with, and we believe there may be some opportunities there at some point. With the community colleges, yes, we are on their campuses. We are visiting with them, our admissions counselors. I think I mentioned the geofencing at the healthcare facilities, which I think will be our largest majors initially. One thing that we have not done yet that we most likely will is purchase names specific to those degrees. Right now we've been focused more on a more broad application, so we are capturing those individuals with what we have purchased, but we're also capturing any individual without the baccalaureate degree, but we'll refine that at some point. But to directly answer your question, yes, we're on the community college campuses.
Anybody have any other questions for Dr. Lerner in relation to this? I think this is going to be fantastic. University, I think it's really going to produce a lot of great quality students, and I think it's done something for the metro area that really is not available at the moment, especially in area that shows. So look forward to great things from that. This item is presented for information only and no action is necessary. Item 17-78, Capital Expenditure Plan, P1 report, 2018 to 2022. Each year, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board requests an updated plan for new construction, repair, and rehabilitation projects, information resource projects, and property purchases. A copy of the proposed MP1 is shown in your board book. Kyle, please comment.
Sure. I'd like to say every year we're required to give this report to the coordinating board, and it's basically a list of any project we think we might actually initiate over the next 12 months. They're not funded necessarily, they're just projects we think we might start. So the one at the very top is the Bowling Science renovation, and it's basically $20 million. It includes about 22,000 square foot expansion and renovation of that facility. Any luck, the next legislative session, I might get that. Question? Be positive, Debbie.
All right, before we discuss any further, could I have a motion to approve the MP1 as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
For the entire list?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a discussion.
Absolutely.
I have a concern about the football stadium. It's showing $18 million, private funds only. And if I'm understanding this right, we're being asked now to authorize proceed with the stadium. And we don't have $18 million, I don't think. We have, I assume at some point, we're going to be asking for pledges for $18 million, but I don't think we have that yet. And I don't see how we can jump into that if we don't have the money yet.
I'll let Kyle answer that.
Well, none of these projects are currently funded, so we're not asking you to approve any of these projects.
Okay.
At this point in time.
Okay.
It's, for lack of a better way to say it, it's a wish list of projects that we would like the state or to be able to fund or build, or at least start in the next year. But it's unlikely we're going to get $113 million for the next 5 years.
Just a little differential. Kyle, is it fair to say though, one of the dangers is that if it is not on this list, we can't come up and surprise the coordinating board.
Yes,
So the reason it's such an extensive list and the costs are at a maximum is because if we don't list it, they could say, no, you're not going to do that. If we had somebody walk in and say, I'd like to do this for you.
You have to start high.
You have to start high and you have to put everything on the table so that it's approved for a dream and a hope.
Exactly.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Did that answer your question? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 17-79, the accessibility ADA and fire marshal upgrade upgrades project. This item, request board approval of a construction manager at risk. Mr. Owen, please review this item and the recommendations.
Sure, we issued a request for proposal last February for a construction manager that would oversee this project. We received 5 different submissions, and the committee of 7, each of us reviewed the submissions, and each of us independently came up with the selection of M&F Liticon as the preferred or recommended contractor. They, besides having the lowest price, they also have history with MSU. They built the expansion on McCoy as well as the softball locker room and batting cage. And lastly, they're a Wichita Falls contractor, so they're very familiar with the local contractors. And we have found that we tend to get better pricing if the local contractors are favored in favored eyes, if you will, with the construction needs.
Before we have a discussion, can I have a motion to approve this recommendation as presented? A second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 17-80, utility contracts policy 2.24. Y'all may recall that 2 years ago we authorized the president to enter into a contract with the electricity provider up to $2 million on behalf of the board. At that time, the contract policy was not modified and the authorization was considered as a one-time only event. Mr. Owen and Dr. Foley have worked with Mr. Moffitt to change the contract wording to provide more flexibility and ensure the administration can negotiate the best rate for the purchase of electrical and gas utility contracts. Mr. Owen, please review this item with the board.
Sure. In March, Direct Energy came to us and gave us an offer of a blend and extend contract to result in an electricity rate of 4.175. We're currently paying 4.62 cents per kilowatt hour, and that roughly 10% increase was significant. However, we still have 3 years left on our current contract, and this would have added another 4 years to it for a total of 7. And right now, our policy does not authorize the administration to sign a contract or utility contract for more than 5 years unless it's by with the GLO. And so we're requesting the ability of changing the policy to be able to extend that contract. I would like to say that over the 10 years I've been here, we were initially paying 9.6 cents a kilowatt hour, and it's slowly gone down over the years, and we're in a very favorable pricing situation. I will tell you that Texas Association of School Boards has over 200 members, has 85% of their schools have contracted with Direct Energy out to 2025 because of this pricing, and for that matter, Wichita County has done the same thing. So just time is right for signing this for great pricing.
And before we have discussion, can I have a motion to approve this recommendation as presented?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions in relation to this request?
I just have a question. Have you determined how much of a savings that'll be for us over the course of the contract? And just curious.
I know that was determined, but I don't have that number.
If you could provide it to us.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
If you could get that to us, that would be
Sure.
Other questions or concerns? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 17-81, holiday schedules for staff employees for 2018. This item explains how the holiday schedules are developed and the schedules for next year are recommended for approval as shown in Word. Dr. Foley is available to answer any questions. Could I first have a motion to approve this item as presented?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Is there any discussion about the holiday schedule? Didn't think so. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the business to come before this committee. We will move on to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. I have asked Ms. Marks to serve as acting chair in Dr. Bloom's absence.
Thank you. The Academic and Student Affairs Committee will now come to order. Members of the committee joining today are Mr. Hessing and Dr. Sweat. Our first item is 17-82, the approval of minutes of our committee meeting held February the 8th, 2017. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they'll stand approved as presented. The next item is 17-83, faculty report. Dr. David Carlston, Faculty Senate Chairman, will present the faculty report. Dr. Carlston?
Appreciate the opportunity to be here again. We had our elections. You're stuck with me again. Hopefully we don't get too tired of me. Want to just share a few things. There have been a number of significant things from a faculty perspective that have been going on this year. I think from the biggest picture perspective, we've talked a lot before about transparency and collaboration and relationships between administration and faculty. And I cannot emphasize more the change that the university has taken over the last 2 years. There's been significant collaboration. There's been a lot of I think a lot of fences have been repaired or mended, and we're moving in the right direction, as you can see in the strategic planning and the process that we went through with that. A number of committees and task forces have been working throughout the entire year that have been very important in doing that as well. We're excited about the hiring of our new provost, right? It's always nice to have a familiar and well-qualified face in the room that understands who we are as a university and who we are as a faculty. A couple of things that I just want to comment on. There's a couple of policies that will come up later for discussion. Hopefully I don't steal too much thunder, but I do want to share a little bit of faculty's perspective on these, and we'll certainly be available if there are any questions later. But one of the policies that will be coming forward is the information resource use and security policy. This is related to the IT usage. This has been a significant area of concern for faculty, and a number of reasons. We're very happy to have Dr. Sanchez and Jim Hall working on that policy. One, because of their approachability, and two, their familiarity with education and the expectations and the resources that are necessary in order to deliver the educational product. We certainly are very aware of it's the best of our ability and share the concerns regarding security. So we, as a faculty, want to be in compliance as best we can. We have had a number of discussions and a number of concerns voiced in terms of some of the unique educational pieces, in terms of working off-site, in terms of delivering distance education, in terms of software licensing, and in terms of being able to have the manpower necessary to implement the policy that's in place, in terms of software installs and support. But we are very pleased with the way the policy has come together and the collaboration in that. There will be faculty representation in the development of the handbook that's associated with the policy, which is, from our perspective, essential. Much better to do that on the front end rather than on the back end of the handbook development. One of the things that as a faculty we have requested through the administration is that once the handbook is developed, that there be a full semester implementation period, right, where faculty can kind of get in compliance without fear of discipline or without fear of punishment, for lack of a better word. So that's kind of where we are there. We certainly are very pleased with the way that has worked out. The other policy that will be coming forward that is of significant concern to faculty is the conflict of interest, conflict of commitment, and outside employment and activities policy. I say that and I get shivers and cringes already. We've been looking at this multiple times and working very closely with Ms. Kidwell and Barry Mata and with Dr. Shipley, and it has been a process. It's a very important policy to faculty for a number of reasons. One, you'll later in this part of this board meeting, you'll have the opportunity to go through faculty portfolios and recommendations for tenure and promotion. And one of the things that you'll notice in there, aside from the fact that we have amazing faculty that are doing incredible things, but there are specific requirements of faculty that require us to be engaged in outside activity, whether that be community service and service on local boards, whether that be service on professional boards or other professional areas. And so one of the things that's been very important as we've gone through the iterations of this policy proposal is that faculty are protected so that they can engage in those activities that are required for their tenure and promotion. The other piece in this that's been important, certainly outside employment and outside activity are very important from a teaching perspective, right? As a clinical psychologist, it would be very awkward and unprofessional for me to teach a psychology course or a therapy course if I haven't done therapy since I graduated from my PhD program. So certainly the outside employment and outside activity are supplement and build on that educational foundation. And then lastly, outside employment and activity is important for faculty for financial reasons as well. You are more aware than some of the rest of us in terms of the financial exigencies that are placed on the university. In terms of, we've had several years with reduced raises, without merit raises, or with reductions in summer compensation. And again, it's a restatement of the obvious. It's a historical statement rather than a critical statement. But with that in mind, it has become very important for some faculty, and again, this particular policy encompasses all university employees and staff as well, that they're able to supplement their incomes with outside activity as well. So we're pleased with the way that the policy has taken shape thus far. We recognize that with the implementation of the reporting process and the approval process, that our request is that we revisit the policy and the implementation of the policy at the end of the next academic year, so that we can evaluate both the content and the process for the reporting and approval. So those are the two major policies that we've been working on. We've been working with financial aid task and admissions task force, and certainly at some point the results of that task force will be presented. And I think that will be very helpful in terms of evaluating the preparedness of our students as well as our preparedness to shepherd our students through their academic experience. And then lastly, as I mentioned already, tenure and promotion is coming up. I would encourage you to spend the time to look at that. That's a very significant process for faculty. I know Dr. Johnson will go over and review some of the criteria and all the expectations. I do want to assure you that tenure doesn't mean you get to check out. Okay, there is a post-tenure review. Every year there's an annual review or annual report where we review faculty's ability to meet the expectations, their contractual expectations and educational expectations. So it isn't an opportunity to coast, but it's an opportunity to extend a commitment to a faculty member and support their efforts to provide the education needed to teachers. Those are my comments. Again, I'm available for any questions, either now or as we get back to some post policy.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Congratulations on your re-election, and we look forward to working with you next year. With your sense of humor and your wit, we always look forward to that, so that will be a good day. Our next item is 17-84, the staff report. Ms. Angie Ray, Chair of the MSU Staff Senate, will present the report. I would also like to mention that Ms. Ray recently assumed a new role at MSU, and she was named Director of the Wellness Center. Congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Staff Senate's been very active throughout our committees and initiatives here on campus this year. Our big ones we've played a role in is the Budget Oversight Committee, the strategic plan, the capital campaign. We're very appreciative of the staff representation that we have on all of the committees and initiatives that we have going on campus. We do want to recognize two of our staff members. Staff Senate recognizes colleagues who go the extra mile for staff members, faculty, and students. Part of what makes MSU great are the number of people who are dedicated to the university, our students, and to each other. Staff Senate, we provide a forum on our webpage where staff faculty can go and nominate people who they feel like are going the extra mile. So we want to make sure we recognize Mr. Stephen Draper, and he is with Information Technology, and Ms. Lisa Butler, she is with our print shop. And so they came to our last Staff Senate meeting, and they were awarded their certificate and recognized for their hard work. Unfortunately, in August, I will not be back. I've served my 4 years on Staff Senate, but we do have our Staff Senate voting happening at this time. It concludes tomorrow, and so for the August meeting, I'll be able to present the new Staff Senators. That'll be for 17-18.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Item 17-85, Student Government Report. Ms. Shayla Owens, Student Government President, will present her report and will introduce the newly elected president. Ms. Owens?
Hi, so I'm not actually going to sit. My report is not a regular report today. It's actually a video, and it's going to go across the year of what we've worked on, all the accomplishments we've had, and some things.
As the year draws to a close, we're super excited.
And some thank you that we would like to give before we introduce the new president. So,
Now, I had to share with you all what we've been working on this past year. We've initiated new programs, great initiatives,
and we've even improved the campus
safety.
Take a look.
SGA
has been extremely busy this year within the 2016-2017 school year. We've been working super hard to make sure that SGA has a great reputation on campus and that we're always advocating on the students' behalf. We have different programs, initiatives, and safety concerns that we've been addressing all year. Within our programs, we have instituted Waffle Wednesday, which is the night where students can come out once a month to get to know SGA, and they can voice their opinions to us. We pay for the students that do not have a meal plan, and it's a great way for students to meet other students and then to get to know their executives anytime that they would need something or need to come talk to us. They know where to go. They know that we're always there for them. SGA was also part of the 2016 I-Lead conference this year, which is our fall conference for all of our organizations to come and learn how they can be better leaders on campus and better leaders within their organizations. Within our initiatives, we are so excited to announce that SGA will be rolling out scholarships in fall of 2017. It will amount to $2,000, with 2 students receiving $500 in the fall and $500 in the spring. With 70% or so of our students being on financial aid, we recognize the burden that higher education has on these students, and we really want to be able to continue to be an advocate for students, but also recognize the needs that are always there. We were extremely excited to be a part of the desegregation marker that happened on campus. We wrote a resolution, and it was actually able to be read at the ceremony, and it constituted, the resolution involved thanking the 6 plaintiffs for helping Midwestern get to where they are today, and making sure that each student has an equal opportunity to gain an education at a 4-year institution. Campus safety is also a huge concern within SGA. We've added new LED lights on the sidewalk around Legacy Hall. We've also added an emergency blue light phone on the southwest end of Cyflex Trail. And we also have 10 additional AED units to be installed in our high traffic areas in case of an emergency for faculty, staff, and students. To the incoming execs, we're extremely proud of all your hard work and all that you'll accomplish next year. Remember that you are always the voice of the students, so take heed to what it is they need you to do, but also enjoy your time in office. It goes extremely fast. Have a great day, and go Mustangs. So a few things I didn't mention on the video because it's a little hard to actually say everything that we did. But a lot of the positions that we've had that were to be hired this school year, SGA had a student on the committee to help in the voting process and really just to understand what it means for that next person to come on board here at Midwestern State. But without further ado, I would like to introduce our incoming student body president, Ms. Maria Pena. I've had the great pleasure of working with her for about 2.5 years in student government, and she was actually my assistant while I was the president in student government. One of the great things about her is she's super selfless, and she always wants to make sure that the students have everything they need to get through the school year, but just to get through the day here at Midwestern State. So without further ado,
well, seeing that this last report for the semester was Shayla's, I'll have my report for you guys in August for what we plan to do with our Student Government Association this next year. But a little about myself. I've been involved in student government since my freshman year, and this coming year I'll be a senior political science major and history major. Some of the exciting things that I've been able to do through academics was serve on the Model United Nations team this past year, where we received our first award nationally. And then next year I'll be doing co-plaque with Dr. Turner for the Cultural Crossroads research. And I've been involved on campus with a bunch of organizations. I wanted to be as, I guess, educated in the things that the students needed in regards to not just the things that affected myself, but in other things that students would need on campus, so that when I would be in this position, if they granted me this opportunity, would be that I could not just represent myself or the people that I knew clearly, but everybody else on campus. And so some of the things that I myself and the rest of the cabinet would like to do next year would be to ensure that our students understand what exactly we do with student government. So it would be, we would want to focus more on awareness and understanding how we and our student organizations can focus on our committees in SGA, because we have a lot of committees that are sometimes dormant that I feel like our organizations could also fulfill and be further implementing their things that they want to do on campus. So among with the awareness, we would also like to ensure that students feel safe on campus, just like we have mentioned before, which is safety on campus, and just bringing more awareness to the topics that they want to focus on. And then more of the things that we would like to focus on the next year is involvement and retainment of our students, and so that they can feel safe on campus and to actually have stuff to do on campus on the weekends. We would like to help make sure that our students don't just transfer, because I've seen students, they come here their freshman year and then they transfer their sophomore year. And we would like to be able to help and ensure that our students stay here and are involved on campus. And so I'm very pleased to be able to serve this next year as president, and I'm very excited to share with you in August more in depth of the plans that we have. And I'm very excited and I'm happy to be here, and clearly nervous, and so that's all I have to say for now. But thank you so much for hearing us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. We look so forward to working with you along with the new officers next year. And Shayla will be coming back to us. Congratulations. She has been selected by Governor Abbott as our new student regent. So we look forward to, again, working with her beginning in June. So thank you. Item 17-86, the athletic report. Mr. Williams' report is presented in the board book as point of information only. Do any of you have any questions of Mr. Williams? If not, I do hope that you had time to take a look at it, and particularly the part that stressed that the MSU Mustangs accounted for 2,500 community service hours in our community. Some of the things that they were talking about was Humane Society, Special Olympics, Meals on Wheels, Food Bank, and Otter and Health. So, well done. Well done, Mr. Williams. Thank you. All right, let's move to the next item. Item 17-87, May 2017 graduating class. The administration recommends approval of the candidates for May graduation as presented. There are 688 students on the list compared to 672 in 2016. May I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 17-88, core curriculum changes. The administration is recommending various changes to the core curriculum as outlined in the board book. Dr. Johnson, please review these recommendations and the overall process for approval.
Good afternoon, thank you. Sparks, would you like me to address A and then B, or just generally the changes to the core?
Let's do the core first.
They're very similar to in their whole. The first three general areas of change. The first one we'll see are the additional biology courses to the foundation area. Those represent ongoing updates to the biology curriculum, and also adds some courses to provide choice and flexibility for students based on their interest and major. So those are in the foundation area of the core. The language changes represent a response to a Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board memo that disallows skills courses in the optional area of the core. So those are the ones that are in the title have culture of, are reflecting those changes. So instead of focusing on skills development, they are related to the culture and context surrounding the language. Next with language are the intermediate, the courses titled intermediate. Those are in the foundation area, so it's shuffling of those a little bit to, again, provide the opportunity to develop skills and language. So a little bit of shuffling between two areas of the core. If I may, in item B, the changes from the fine arts are in response to the same coordinating board memo. Again, those courses are moving away from the skills development and instead providing context and history surrounding the subject matter. So in response to those, all of those changes have been vetted by the core curriculum committee and academic council and are presented to you for approval.
May I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I've got a quick question. So really, this is just cleanup to accommodate the coordinating board and the request to get all the core curriculum consistent.
Correct. The optional area, in our case, cultural and global, is an opportunity for us to be flexible and represent or reflect the mission, a liberal arts mission of MSU. Not allowing skills in that optional area, we had to move those up to a different area and then replace those with the same flexibility and options.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
The description of A10 is not correct, is it?
No.
Oh, yes, it is typo. It should be.
Oh, no.
They're the prefix and the...
That's one of the German courses, too.
Yikes.
French is the new German.
French is the new
German. Dr. Shipley does not find that amusing.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. The motion carries. Thank you. Item 17-89, housing and dining service rates. The administration's recommended housing and dining rates for 2017-2018 and comparison charts are presented in the board book. Dr. Lamb, please comment on these recommendations.
That's Matt Park, our Associate Vice President, Dean of Students, to help with this one. In
I
the
tap him
event.
on the foot if he's talking too long.
So as you see in your book, we are requesting an increase in housing and dining rates, and we are also asking for a change in the way that we bill housing and dining. And let me walk you through the rate increase request. There are three primary reasons for the rate increase request this year, or considerations. One is, if you all recall, if you're on the board in 2012, I believe it was, when Brailsford and Dunlavey did a housing master plan for us. And at that time, the housing master plan consisted of one new facility, efficiency in operations, and rate parity plan. And we started enacting that shortly after in 2013. And a lot of that had to do with the rate parity between our traditional residence halls, McCullough Trigg, and Bridwell Courts. And we're continuing that to try to bring those more in line with one another, especially with Bridwell Courts. The second point is we are a debt-heavy system. Our housing system has grown 143% since 2003. We have, as you all know, we have transitioned from a commuter institution to a residential institution during that time. The new housing facilities that we have, necessitated debt being issued for those. In addition, in the mid-2000s, the Texas State Fire Marshal started investigating university housing facilities for National Fire Protection Association Life Safety Code 101. And that cost us several millions of dollars in renovations to both Pierce and Killingsworth. So essentially all of our facilities, with the exception of McCullough and Bridwell, have debt because it is a young housing system. And so that's a consideration when we're determining rates on the revenue that we need to pay those debts. The third point is we try very, very hard with all these other factors to keep our rates at or below median of two groups of institutions. One's Lone Star Conference schools and the others are direct competitors who we know our students are looking at from shared applications, shared SAT, and shared ACT scores. And that is the first attachment that you will see there. It's the housing and dining rate comparisons. And as you can see there, with our traditional residence hall rate, which is Pierce and Killingsworth, our proposed 17-18 rates fall right at median compared to the other schools' 16-17 rates. Okay, so we're comparing a year behind. All of these other schools, or most of these other schools, most likely will have increases as well, which will again put us below median. Our semi-private suites, which is our McCullough facility, we are 13 out of 14 in what we charge. Our apartments are 4-bedroom units, 9 out of 11, and 2-bedroom units, 10 out of 14. Now, another thing that's very important to us when we look at these is the total housing package, and that would include dining rates. And so if you take, and that's the next page, if you take our traditional residence hall, Pierce Killingsworth, and the all access or the maximum meal plan, compare that to other schools, again, our proposed 17-18 versus their current 16-17 rates, we are right at median. And we don't want to be above that, but we want to recognize how nice and young our system is, what good facilities we have, and make sure that we are sustaining those operations. And we'll get to the actual rates in just well, let's go ahead and do that. If you look at the actual rates, the next attachment, proposed housing and dining rates, you can see that we are listing those annually. In the past, we have listed those for you all on what it would cost semesterly to the students, and we are now showing you what that costs annually. And you can see the increases in there for the reasons I mentioned. One of the reasons, or the main reason we wanted to show you all this on an annual basis is because we would like to begin billing those at a 60-40 split. In other words, if you sign a housing contract for the year, you would pay 60% of the annual fee in the fall, 40% of the annual fee in the spring. And what that does for us, we believe, is it helps our spring occupancy. Any given spring, we typically drop 8 to 10% in housing occupancy. And the reason for that is essentially in the fall is our large influx of students, of new students during the fall. We typically have a large graduation in December, and we don't replenish those in the spring. So typically we have a dramatic drop in fall to spring. And we also have students who no longer meet housing requirements, move off, etc. We believe if students will pay 60% in the fall and 40% in the spring, it will make remaining on campus for the spring, if you're no longer under the housing requirement, more attractive because it would be a smaller cost, although you get paid more in the fall. We have safeguards in place for students who cannot afford the 60% in the fall. We will give those students waivers and bill them at a 50-50. We will work with financial aid to ensure that's done appropriately. What we are very careful with going into this is that housing cost in the 60-40 split is not a burden to any student. And that a lot of that, this will be, if approved, this will be our first time to do this. There are other schools that do similar that we've learned from, but undoubtedly we will have some students who request waivers, and we will give those to them and bill at a 50-50 split. Students who graduate in December or at midterm, or students who are entering clinicals and not on campus, or teaching practicums and not on campus, will receive a 10% refund at the end of the fall, so that they only pay 50% during the fall. Matt, did I miss anything there?
I think you covered everything. Good job.
Any
I was
questions?
crossing my fingers under the table. Yeah, good job.
Before we entertain the questions, may I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
So I was here in 2012, and I remember the discussion, I remember the study. And I think you guys have done a fabulous job of getting to this point. And back in 2012, we weren't even close to median. And I couldn't figure out, and I think I raised the question at the time, why aren't we getting better? And to your point, I think you ought to look at the 3 points of why we're raising it and begin to look at it from the flip, because we're getting into the market now and our competition is charging more, and we're still, with the newer housing, under a lot of those guys. And again, I'm never up for significant movement in pricing, but by the same token, we have to be in the market, and that is, I have no issue with that. You answered partially the question I was going to ask about 60/40. How many of our competitors are doing 60/40 right now?
The one in Texas that we're aware of is Texas Tech.
Okay.
And we have visited with their housing operations. Christy Schultz is our Director of Residence Life and Housing, and she's here as another security blanket for me today. And she has visited with their housing operations, as has our business office with their business office operations and our financial aid.
Have they found it to be cumbersome?
Parts of it, yes. More for the staff, not for the students.
Well, that's what I mean, because it seems to me that if we're going to offer people escape hatches, if you will, out of 60/40, it's going to be a pain for our staff to keep up with that. Again, admittedly, the 60/40 cash flow is going to be a big benefit.
Right.
Does this fully fund our debt service?
This proposal will, with the expected occupancy. And we're expecting occupancy this next year to be slightly above where we were this year. Not dramatically, so it's a fairly conservative estimate.
So are you anticipating that Pierce Hall will come back on?
Yes, absolutely. In the fall, we are already assigning out those rooms.
Keith, can you explain what in terms of the meal plans, what is all access?
Yes. Actually, I'll ask Matt to explain it. Matt, first I may get it wrong, but Matt's actually the architect behind the meal plans.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The all-access meal plan, in comparison to the one which says Block 250 or Block 150, allows those students unlimited swipes or access into the resident dining facilities.
Okay.
Compared to the other blocks, every swipe deducts one meal from the block. So if I'm a grazer and I just want to go in and have a piece of fruit or a soda or a light meal, and I have the all-access, I could potentially go in 10, 20 times a day. We don't see that too much, but that's the idea, is it literally is unlimited access to the dining space or the kitchen for the residential students, in contrast to the one swipe equals one less meal on their meal plan for the semester.
So what percentage of our students have the all access versus the block?
The all access is the most popular or sought after plan, and Christy helped me out. I want to say around 40% of the residential students carry that plan. Would that be about right, Christy?
And so are meals offered only Monday through Friday? Are they offered on the weekend?
No, ma'am. So the residential dining facilities are open through the weekend as well. We do not open all of the what we call the retail locations, such as the Chick-fil-A or the Einstein Brothers Bagels on weekends, but the Mesquite Dining Hall and the Mavericks Corner Space, those maintain their operating hours on Saturday and Sunday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have a question about FAFSA. Now, if you're doing 60% in the fall and 40% in the spring, normally with financial aid, you get half in the fall, half in the spring.
Right.
How would that work?
So
would you get more in the fall?
No, you would not. You would still get 50-50 split. And so what we expect to see, and what they have seen at Tech, for example, are students on Pell Grants generally who do not have the funds to pay the other 10% out of pocket. They would seek the exemption or the waiver and would do 50-50 billing.
So to take that one step further, then there should be excess in the spring if they're on a 50-50 split with, okay.
Yes,
Ooh,
exactly.
I see some stuff happening there.
Dad? That'd be a comment and a question. It seems to me if the goal of this is to be at or below median, and yet with the adjustments we're making, we're still going to be behind, how are we ever going to get to the ultimate goal if we don't have a greater than proportionate increase at some point in time?
We started this in 2013, and we were last in what we charged among this group for traditional residence hall. So we have increased it closer to median. To answer your question, I think it's just we'll have to reevaluate it next year and see where we're at. We have an idea from what the other schools have told us what they will increase, but we don't actually know until it happens. So we want to be real careful not to overestimate what the market will
Kevin, and I can't remember the whole conversation, but I do recall that as we had this conversation back in 2012 when it first came up, one of the things we did not want to do, and I think that's the other two pieces of this three-piece puzzle of what we do here. One, you don't want to raise it so high that the students are hurt by it. You also want to make sure you're covering that debt service, and that's really what you need to be doing. And to that point, I think that Kyle.
It's an upgrade from
Keith.
Okay.
Keith just pointed out, we have made headway. We've made headway. So again, I don't want to speak for these guys, but I just remember the whole conversation at 12 and how all that went and the progress we've made to date. So.
Any additional questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you. Item 17-90, faculty emeritus status. While this item will be discussed in closed session, I want to mention that the individuals recommended for emeritus status were reviewed in accordance with the policy we approved last August. A copy of the policy is shown in your board book. Are there any questions about the policy? If not, we'll move on. Items 17-91 and 92 will also be discussed in closed session later in the meeting, and Dr. Johnston will present general information regarding faculty promotion and tenure at this time.
Thank you. Just as a general overview and reminder of the process and policy, each year faculty prepare an annual performance report which outlines their achievements in the three areas that we expect: teaching, scholarship, and service. When they apply for tenure and or promotion, those documents then feed into the policy and they prepare a portfolio application for tenure and promotion. Those on tenure track or seeking tenure must apply in their fifth and, if necessary, their sixth year to be granted tenure. The promotion is an elective process, so we may have faculty that sit. It has to be a minimum of 5 years since the last promotion or in their fifth year, but we have some that will sit longer than that before applying for associate or full professor. So it is a significant milestone in that faculty member's career path. There are specific questions or about the policy. You will see, I will mention also, there are two policies still active, the 2008 and the 2014 policy. When we updated the policy in 2014, it was to reflect current mission expectations of our faculty in teaching and scholarship in particular. It did clean up a few redundancies in the document, but we did allow 5 years for those faculty who elected to stay on the 2008 plan or were mid-process, if you will, sufficient time to apply under that former plan, so they didn't have to rearrange a lot of their documents and their applications. So they were also given the opportunity to electively move to the 2014 plan if it was more better suited to their progress. So.
All right, our committee will stand in recess until later in the meeting. So respond to that. completes our report.
Thank you, Ms. Marks. Since nobody asked for a bathroom break, we'll move on.
Take a 10-minute break.
Timely break, almost. Now the Finance Committee, Mr. Gregg.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me get organized here. The Finance Committee will now come to order. Members of the committee here today are Mr. Ayers and Mr. Crosno. The first item, 17-93, is approval of minutes of our February 9, 2017 meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they stand approved as presented. Our next item, 17-94, is a summary financial report support through March 30th. And before I ask Tony to review these reports, I want to highlight some of the gifts received since our last meeting. The Prairie Foundation agreed to assist with the expenses and operations of the MSU Comprehensive Campaign for 5 years at $100,000 each year. So thank you, Dr. Sweat. The Aiken Music Series received a donation of $37,500 from Mr. and Mrs. Joe Proto. The Bear Business Bureau of North Central Texas contributed $30,000 to the Louis J. Rodriguez Epic Starship. And Mr. Reynold Gustafson with Paulson Stribbing Company contributed $12,000 to the Mustangs Athletics Club as a 16-17 corporate sponsor. We also received a $5,000 donation from Mr. and Mrs. Dennis Barnes to support men's golf. And Mrs. David Kimball Sr. donated $5,000 to the President's Excellence Circle for 16-17. As always, the support from our community, alumni, and friends is outstanding. And Tony, at this time, you please review our report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon again. Couple introductory comments you're going to be hearing very shortly. I'm excited to bring up Dr. Shipley in a while, and she's going to give a very detailed, comprehensive campaign update. There's a lot going on. As we sit in our quiet or planning phase of this comprehensive campaign, you look to build an infrastructure, policies, you do research on your donors, you work to develop the marketing collateral that you'll be using, awareness, and you're queuing up large asks. And that's exactly what's happening and been happening. And as I mentioned, Dr. Shipley will give some more details, but let's look at some of the financial attainments that we'll be looking at, the reports. The reports that I'm referencing begin on page 79 of 186 of your board book. The first report we have is the monthly comparison of new gifts and commitments through the end of March, all these are through the end of March. And to that date of the new gifts and commitments are totaling $2,753,638. That's essentially of a goal of our fiscal year 5.5, about 50.07%. When you look at that, one of those things we look at, it's not always fully accurate because there's a lot of moving parts in a campaign, but we look at the time expended. So we're raising about 50.07% of our fiscal year goal. Time expended on the fiscal year is 58.33%. So that's within the parameters where you'd want to be. And as I mentioned, we're also going to see probably in the next couple months some larger gifts that are in process, and you'll hear a little bit more about that. If you look at the next report, it's essentially a very similar report, but it takes out the pledges and looks at the monthly comparison of cash and grants. This is the part that Dr. Foley and Mr. Stovall are most interested in. And we sit at a $4.4 million goal and about 44.6% attained of that during that time frame. So that's a little bit lower than what we want to be, but not much. Again, when you look at this, it's well within where we expect to be. And one of those things that we'll be seeing is some of these large gifts as we close the fiscal year are going to bump that up. The other thing that I'll make you aware of that's a project of our annual giving and really is a collaboration from a number of entities in the university is we will be dropping, I believe Monday, Steve Schiff told me, 7,833 fundraising appeals under the president's signature, letters that will go within a 50-mile radius of our Flower Mound campus, MSU Flower Mound. That's been a collaborative effort that we've worked with Dr. Lamb on, also Ms. Gaynor. And you noticed, you already heard the reports that Dr. Lamb talked about. Those are dropping right after there's been increased awareness through the other marketing blitzes, through the geofencing, through the commercials, even in movie theaters. So we're looking forward to that, and I think we're going to see significant results there. The next report you see is the pie chart, which essentially looks at the sources of outright gifts, and it's remaining pretty consistent, that we see most of our funds in this fiscal year coming from foundations and then equally split between corporations and alumni and students. The last report is one that we're excited to show you. It looks at one of those things that under Dr. Shipley's leadership, building upon a foundation of years of wonderful President's Excellence Circle commitments and engagements, is let's look at what actually is happening in the President's Excellence Circle. So I asked our team to pull together that data from the last 2 years, from September, beginning of a fiscal year, last fiscal year, and this year. And the results are at the bottom, summary, which I'll just highlight very quickly. Total giving is up 7.9%. This is PEC giving. Total number of donors up, same time period, 6.5%. Average gift amount up, almost 10%. That's very good. Pledges are up 133%. So good traction there, and a nice sign of some of the activity and awareness and the community coming behind the early stages and the quiet phases of a campaign. Also want to single out, shout out to Peyton and Jane Carnes and their leadership. Has been very influential in this, and we thank them. That would be the end of my report. I will entertain any questions before we bring up Dr. Shipley, if that's appropriate. Okay, thank you. Dr. Shipley?
Tony, let's wait, that's the next item, so
okay.
She still has some other things to say.
Yeah, but you're not off the hook yet.
Okay.
As a reminder, your folder contains a list of donors and note cards, and please write your thank you notes to those assigned to you, as well as any others you'd like to include. And now, we're going to item 17.95, the comprehensive campaign update, which will be presented by both Tony and by Dr. Shipley.
You got it there? Great. I'd like you to open your folders, please, to this sheet here. It looks like this, campaign talking points. I'm going to start with that. And so just going to get my slides up and turn to campaign talking points. Okay, good. When Sean and others in the room, Kyle, Shayla, when we met as a campaign planning committee, we thought it would be helpful for the people closest to us to have talking points. If you're in a party situation or you're shopping and you run into someone in the store who says, I've heard that you've got a campaign going, what are you trying to accomplish? And these campaign talking points are 3 simple statements that you can make about our campaign, which are our 3 main pillars of the campaign. We are looking to enrich lives, and I'll show you how that might play out in my subsequent slides, enhance teaching and learning, and also invest in our campus and community. So this campaign is not just about what we can do for Midwestern State, but what Midwestern State can do for the great community we're in. And what you're going to see today is how we've worked with a company to personalize every ask we make through visuals and statements. So if we go and ask someone for a scholarship, we're going to be focusing on the enriching lives. If we ask for an endowed professorship, we'll be focusing on the pillar of enhancing teaching and learning. If we talk about an athletic statement, we'll be talking about its impact on our campus and community. So our ask can have information from all of those pillars or just 3 of them. And I'd like to walk those through right now with you. So as Tony mentioned, one of the first things we did with this campaign is we created visuals that we'll be using for the life of the campaign. It's a 5 to 7 year campaign with a goal of $50 million. So we will have a look, this MSU Texas logo that you've seen before that's typical just for the campaign. It's used in all of our promotional literature for the campaign. And this is an example of a business card. So Tony and I and others involved in the campaign will have this as a special visual. We'll have a stationery that looks similar to this, so that when we write you a thank you note or send you a letter updating you about the campaign, it'll look like this instead of our business stationery. The next slide, here's a thank you note. We'll be hopefully sending a lot of those with very big numbers on them. And then you can also see how we can create folders for material as we go out and talk to folks. Let's look at our campaign concepts next. We were trying for something that was big and bold, that it matched our Texas identity. We wanted to be unique in that we wanted to personalize this for MSU. This is not a cookie cutter approach. This is not a company that works with hundreds of universities and gives us a little tweak. This has been all developed by us. It's customized in that we can go big, we can go small, depending on the donor and the ask. And it's cost and time efficient. And then we'll have big booklets and we'll have small booklets, and I'll show those to you next. So here's the big booklet. You have the normal size in your white arrow, and then you have the big blue Texas sky above it and our logo. And so when you open it up, that's the next slide. Well, here's a smaller version. Next slide. As you open it up, your presentation, your ask fits in that little pocket, and then you have a beautiful visual image of the campus, or if we want to put a different image there, we can. This is one where we might focus on scholarship, so you can have the whole booklet look differently. This is me congratulating a graduate. You have my best side there, the back. You a graduate, and then you can put the same package there, but you can break it up, and it's not all picture. It's some lettering and some more information. This is if we go out in the gun college and we want to talk about respiratory therapy, radiological sciences, or some other aspect. We can take this to a donor interested in that. And you open it up again, and there you go. And that's what the back of the book looks like. And now let's look inside and see what some of our interior spreads will look like. They want to start with a real powerful quote from me, because I'll be the one across the table from everybody asking for support. And so we have as a tagline made our theme boundless opportunities. We had lots of choices. We just really love the feel of the boundless opportunities, because as we looked at pictures from the past, we could see wildcatters and people who settled this area and made us a wealthy, thriving area that we are. They had to reach for boundless opportunities, and they had to have courage and take risks. And we're trying to get that sense of connection to our past and movement toward the future together in that phrase, boundless opportunity. So if we're going out to talk about transforming the lives of our students, we can have a layout like this with some quotes from students and others. Next slide. These are the arts. So you see the art gallery, a quote from an alum, and all of these pictures, we try to get action and excitement around them. And we're probably being told by our committee, fewer words, more pictures. So the presentation that we give to the donor will have a lot of words in it, but the books that we take the presentations out in will have motivational, passionate pictures. So this is another one where you see Robert Forrester, who is on our committee, talking about the facility upgrades we need and the student doing research. If you're doing enhancing teaching and learning, you'll see something like this. We might ask for an endowed professorship or something in that category. Talk about how very great our relationships are between our professors and our students, our professors completely invest in the whole student here. And then if we begin to talk about facilities, we've got a lot of football and other sports photos to talk about those facilities. This is a really good one we can't use because it was made at the Cowboy Stadium in Dallas, and we have to get permission for it, but we really love it. And yeah, go back one. And you'll see mock-ups of the facilities as we get closer to having those pictures. Okay, this one. And then we'll have something on the back that concludes the presentation. And is that it? Yeah. So you see the MSU Texas Boundless Opportunities. I just wanted to let you know that all of the pieces are now falling into place where we can create a great visual impression with our donors, where we've got good information. We have in the background been prioritizing our asks. so that we're looking at our donors and deciding who do we ask first, what is it for, how do we package it. I ask that we focus first on the stadium because it will tell us whether or not we have the interest in the stadium we all hope we have. And so this summer is the time where we'll be out asking various individuals about the stadium. We have a list, a beginning list of 5 to 7 people only. We would like to not have to use all our donors up on single projects. So 5 to 7 people will be speaking with us. Most of those appointments have been made. They'll be speaking with us in the next 6 to 8 weeks. We have a couple of other big asks in line this summer. And so we hope when we come to you in August, you'll begin to see how a campaign really lifts your totals. And for the next 5 to 7 years, we should see larger totals and wonderful opportunities ahead. And then toward the end of your campaign, what basically happens, we're in the quiet phase. We're actually in the planning phase. We're getting ready to move to the quiet phase. You stay in the quiet phase until you reach about 65 to 75% of the total goal you set for yourself. And then you have a public announcement, and then you finish up the campaign with the last 30 to 25% of the campaign. So we'll be stopping and celebrating often, but just wanted to give you a chance to see where we are and see if you have any questions or concerns. We'll be moving in fall to the PEC members. Every board member will have a personal appointment with me, and we'll talk about, you can begin to think now about what you'd like to give. And every member of every board that we have will have personal appointments, and we'll be reaching out to alumni and donors yet undiscovered. Yes, sir.
Is there going to be a digital portion of this as well? I love the logo. I love the presentation. Is that going to go out digitally at some point as well, like with a broader reach, or is this all just going to be?
This is. We had not thought of that. I guess we could think about it. I think these materials are for my person-to-person conversation with Warren, where he and I'm giving him a lot of information, and we're back and forth, and he's asking questions, and I can't imagine a case where we'd use it digitally, but we can ask. We've certainly got a lot of these images that we can spread out across advertising.
The only reason
marketing.
I mention that is because I've seen teasers come out something similar, where someone sees a digital teaser that's like, you see it, it goes to all the alumni,
Oh, you
you
mean
click
emails.
on it, open it, and it's like
Oh,
a
sure.
digital thing that says, hey, contact us because there's
Oh,
like,
yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you meant as part of an ask. Absolutely.
to just
Yes.
kind of generate
Social
that.
media, oh, absolutely. Social media updates, all of that. Right now, we're starting with that old-fashioned newsletter for our PEC that's going out in a couple of weeks, and that's what a lot of people have gotten used to. But particularly as we move toward our younger donor and start building that donor who doesn't give a lot but is very engaged and can give at some point later in their life, that's going to have a digital component. I thought you meant on the asks themselves. Got it.
In a way it did, and then the only reason I mention that is it's two-part. One, that teaser component, but the other part is that, like, I recently, somebody had sent me a GoFundMe. I don't know if you guys ever
Yes,
heard that.
absolutely.
It was the most interesting thing because I said you can like hit your phone,
right,
donate in that second, and it, so I was kind of like, what an interesting concept. And something like that. I don't know that it would have application, but something.
Oh, you bet, and we will accept donations through every venue. Absolutely.
So I have a question. I know this is probably a topic for a later time, but 50 million, was there some thought put into why that amount? And then,
Yes.
I'm sure there was, but also, any thought as to how you want to utilize that already?
Yes, the case actually outlines exactly what the uses would be. So basically what you do in setting a campaign goal is you look at what you average per year in some of your best years, and then you multiply it by the number of years in the campaign. And so we have been in good years when the price of oil was higher. We could average about $9 million a year. Tony and I have set lower goals for my first 2 years because you don't want to ask people for money until you know them well and you know what they could give. But we thought $9 million a year for the 7 years of the campaign was a good goal. That puts us at 49. We bumped it up to 50. Our goal is to try to exceed that. In any campaign, you want to set a goal that you can at least reach and hopefully exceed. And a way to exceed it is either do it in a briefer period or do more money. And I think we would probably stay with the period we've set because it ends at our 100th birthday in 2022, and what a great time to celebrate success. So we'll probably keep raising money for the entire 7 years of the campaign, no matter, if we start at 100 million, we'll keep going and see where we end up. But it was set by an average of 9 million a year times 7 years. Anything else? You good? Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. This discussion was presented as a point of information only, and no action is necessary. Item 17-96, the financial reports. Administration recommends acceptance of the January, February, March 17 financial reports as previously distributed. Dr. Flow's summary of the last report is included in the board book. Before we open the floor for discussion, could I have a motion to accept the financial reports as presented? So moved. Second. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion second. All in favor? Aye. Hearing no opposition, the motion carries. Item 17-97 is the investment report. The administration also recommends acceptance of the second quarter fiscal year 17 report. Dr. Foley's summary report is also included in the board book. Are there any questions regarding this item? If not, could I have a motion to accept the investment report as presented? So moved. Second? Second. Y'all are doing a good job taking notes.
Hey, we got this down.
Yeah. Any discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and second. All in favor? Hearing no opposition, the motion carries. 1798 is Public Funds Investment Act compliance. The administration requests board approval of the training received by Dr. Foley and Mr. Stovall is required by the Public Funds Investment Act. Copies of our certificates are included in the board book. Are there any questions regarding this item? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve this training as presented? We'll move. Second? Second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Hearing no opposition, the motion carries. Item 17-99, salary, title, position changes in fiscal year 17 budget. The reports of personnel changes in January, February, and March are presented for information only. The list of salary, title, and position changes are presented for ratification. As you can see, 6 faculty and staff positions were filled above and below the budgeted amounts. 6 staff members were promoted. A faculty member received a doctorate and salary increase, and 2 positions were reclassified. Any questions regarding those reports? Hearing none, could I have a motion to ratify the personnel changes as presented? So moved. Second. Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Hearing no opposition, motion carries. Item 17-100, testing services fee increase. The administration recommends increasing the fee for the API test of essential academic skills from $50 to $60 as presented in your board book. Dr. Lamb, could you please provide some information regarding this recommendation?
The test of essential academic skills is a test that students in the dental hygiene and the respiratory care programs take for admission to the program. The cost of the test that is charged by the testing company to Midwestern increased by $10. And so we're just requesting a similar $10 increase. Currently, with the old price structure and the new testing fees, we are losing $5 an exam right now.
people take that exam every year?
I don't know. I can get back with you on that. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Just something to do for graduation.
They do it for admittance into the program.
Admittance.
Into the programs, yes, sir.
So all we're doing is just passing along what's been passed to us.
Yes, yes, sir.
Any questions?
Dr. Johnston may have an idea on the number that take the test. Is that what you were?
Sure. So it's, they're competitive admission programs, and in dental hygiene, for example, we have 18 slots each day, 18 seats each year. So applicant pool is usually a 2 or 3 to 1 number of applicants per seat available. Respiratory care has a capacity of 28 at this point. Similar applicant pool, so there's 2 or 3 to 1 applications per position, and it's an exam that reflects the general aptitude and skills that would be used as an indicator of their ability to matriculate out of that program. So it's just one of the measures that points are assigned to and given weight to select a class per cohort.
So it sounds like somewhere north of 100 would be taking it for each cycle.
Any other questions for Kate or Jim? If not, to have a motion to approve this increase effective with the fall 17 semester. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Hearing no opposition, motion carries. Item 17-102 is the fiscal year 18 budget, tuition fee review and recommendations. This presentation will begin with Dr. Shipley, followed by Dr. Floyd.
Oh, wait. Sorry, can you do 17-101? Did I skip that in your page?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
This presentation will not be given by Dr. Floyd. 17-101, motor vehicle registration fee. In keeping with the plan established last year, the administration recommends increasing this fee by $20 a year, and further recommends the fee for students enrolled for either one or both summer sessions as presented. Dr. Lamb, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to run you off, although please provide information on this.
You can run me off anytime you want.
Yeah.
So, the last spring of 2016, we visited with our Student Government Association, our Student Senate, about a plan to systematically increase parking fees at $20 a year until we got to a point we could afford to build a parking garage. At that time, our parking fee was $50 per year. Our student government, again, a year ago, overwhelmingly endorsed that option, and we subsequently increased parking fees for this year to $70. We went back to our Student Senate this year with an update and to ask if they supported continuing in this direction, and again, they indicated support for doing that. We asked by a show of hands, and they indicated that they supported this direction still. And so here we are asking for another $20 increase to $90 for the year for parking permits, so we can continue down this path until such time we can afford a garage. With that said, during the summer we would follow the same policy that we currently do, is where we would charge half if the student comes in during the summer. And then the revenue we estimate will be generated from the increase is around $80,000, and we would use that to pay debt service for additional parking.
And that's for additional parking that's not yet here.
Well, the new parking, for example, that we are placing on Hampstead, I believe, Marilyn, is at Heath? I think I know the answer, but I don't want to get it wrong.
So if you remember last year, we built
the new lot next to the West Campus Annex, and it was about $500,000. So if we continue to go up to $20 each year, year 3, that lot would be paid off. So that's really what this money is going for, is to pay off that existing lot. I don't think we're in a place right now to build a garage in a year or two. So that was kind of the thought, is we continue going up to $20, use the extra money right now to pay off that new lot, and then we'll see where we are in 4 years.
But are we advertising this to the students as going towards the garage?
No, the students are aware that a garage is still several years off.
But they are getting additional parking.
We are getting additional parking. The lot on Hampstead is being paid by the interest on the TRB monies, since that lot will be used primarily to help offset the parking that the new building, the new HSH building, is going to be landing on top of. So we're replacing that parking. So we felt it was appropriate to take the interest off the TRB to be used to supplement the parking that way.
You haven't had any pushback
On
raising this every year?
No, in fact, the reason we went back to Student Senate this year was to see if they were still okay with that. There were a number of questions, undoubtedly. There were some questions and concerns raised, but at the end of the meeting, when we asked for a show of hands, it was very much in the majority supporting it.
And who was present was it just officers of the Student Center or the?
Student senators. And so there were, at that particular meeting, I'll have to go look at the rows, but generally 40 to 45 senators would have been present. And Shayla, I see you sitting back there. Do you remember how crowded that meeting was?
It was probably our biggest meeting of the semester, because they knew that we were talking about those different things and they wanted to be a part of the conversation. Okay.
And several of us were present. Shayla, this is at the SGA meeting.
Right.
Shayla was there, I was there, Dr. Lamb, Matt, Dr. Foley, Dr. Shipley, and everyone was on board with it, with the premise that eventually we would be working towards a parking garage. They don't want a lump sum right now that we're paying, but we'll move toward it and reevaluate every year. And majority was on board. So.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just a question. When you make the statement, the increased revenue to pay the debt service, it's not a direct tie-in, is it? I mean.
No, because that lot was only $500,000, so we just used our cash reserves to do that.
So basically, we just pay for the
We paid it out
pay
of
the
our
lot,
cash
and then this money comes in.
ourselves back.
Okay.
We didn't issue bonds or anything.
So I know we're kind of out of order as far as questions, but I'm going to ask you this question. I know we've talked about this in the past, but as we begin to really give the students a lot of options parking-wise, have we thought about a multi-tiered fee structure for, close in, extended outside, et cetera, so that we can talk about those options? I mean, I know one of the big gripes for commuters is that all the close-in spaces get eaten up early, okay? But again, I know some other universities have gone to a multi-tiered parking structure as far as fees. Is that something that we're thinking about in the future?
We have talked about that. We've also talked about it, should it be different for residential and commuter students, given the number of hours a day their cars are on campus. But yes, we've talked about it. We haven't come to any definitive conclusions. I think a big frustration that our students face, frankly, is, to your point, they drive around and this lot's full, and they go to this lot and this lot. They just want somewhere to go where they know they can park.
Right. And I think if you had that tiered structure, I don't think it's a matter of time as much as location, so.
Anybody else? Thank y'all. Marilyn, you may want to stay. I like you're up there. All right, may I have a motion to approve this increase effective fall of 2017? Second? I don't hear any more discussion. All in favor? Aye. I hear none opposed, the motion carries. Okay, now Dr. Shipley and Dr. Foley will discuss our budget, tuition, and pay review.
Thank you. And for this conversation, we were in front of the SGA the same night as we did the parking fees, and we basically thought long and hard about how we wanted to do this, because as you know, there are, I'll say more about this tomorrow, but there are bills in front of the legislature that will likely put a stop to increased tuition for several years. So we thought about what kind of increases could we make that were generous enough to fund the things we need right away, but not so large that if we have to pull them back, we have a big cut to look at next year, because the bills in front of the legislature are probably going to freeze tuition at this year's tuition, so that universities don't go out and raise tuition 6%, 7%, 8%, knowing that they're getting ready to look at several years of no increase. So we decided not to raise tuition at all, but rather very gently increase our one general fee. And we believe that by raising the total increase to $111 per student, that we spread the increase across our whole student body. We gather more money from that practice by spreading the increase out. And then we're not going back next year and revoking as much of a cost issue. So what Marilyn is going to present to you is all the pieces that go into considering this. So a lot of what we do is we look at where we're having reductions in budget. We look at how we can reduce our costs. We look at how we can keep increases to students low, and we talk to the students about what those increases will do for us. And we get their input, and then we make a recommendation to you. So the recommendation we're making to you today is a 2.5% increase in our cost to students, and Dr. Foley would like to walk through how that was determined and how that will work out.
Okay, so I'll just do a little presentation, the proposals we have for you today. So as Dr. Shipley said, we're looking at increasing kind of the general overall fee on campus, and we would go from $66.25 to $72.65. So overall, if someone's taking 15 semester credit hours, it would cost them an additional $96 to attend MSU.
Can you speak up just a little
Sure, I
bit
can
for our
talk a little louder.
viewers at home?
Okay, so just to show you, there's 3 other fees that we're looking at going up, and then a differential that we're proposing. A few years ago, we had a lot of little course fees, and what we decided to do was collapse all those course fees into a single fee by each college that is used exclusively for instructional purposes. So supplies for the classroom, equipment in the classroom, those kind of things. So we're proposing to go up on 3 of the colleges: humanities, science, and health sciences. And then the nursing IEF differential would also go up, particularly for the cost of the SIM center, the simulation center. That was a shared cost that we had with Vernon College and the hospital, and they've pulled back on how much they're using that facility. So we have to kind of make up the gap, and that's what that fee would be used for. So an example of what it is going to cost our different classes, if you remember, designated tuition, we had a fixed rate. So when you came in as a freshman or a transfer student, it was going to be fixed for 4 years. So that's why you see a little bit of difference between new freshmen coming in, juniors and seniors, because they're going to have a different differential designated tuition rate that they were locked in at when they started school here. So overall, it's the university services fee that will be going up. And then the instructional enhancement fee, what we did there was just average out how many semester credit hours each students are taking in each college times the rate to get the weighted average, basically. So we averaged that in there. And so you can see that overall, we're right at the 2.5%, regardless of which class you're in. So the use of the increases, we are continuing to provide, as you saw in the financial reports I gave you, more scholarships to our students. Our IT costs, as we're doing some of the things with security, all of our software maintenance agreements, like Clockwork, those companies charge an additional 3% or 5%. And if you want to keep using the software, you kind of have to pay it. We're also looking at combining our student services. As we go through the facility renovations we're doing, we're looking for ways to be more efficient and to provide additional services to our students. Faculty and staff salary increases. We did a compensation plan that we've talked to you about, and so this would be the second year of that plan for our staff. And in the budget oversight committee that you've heard about today, we're going through and looking at all the requests, and absolutely number one, the budget oversight committee said to do that year, the second year of that plan is very important. Our health insurance increases, I don't think I have to tell you what's going on there. And then our new mass communications edition, so that's additional space to us, and we'll have to pay more utilities, supplies, custodial, that kind of thing for that additional space. And then, of course, our increasing instructional costs for our students. We talked about the nursing program, equipment warranties, and that kind of thing. One of the fees that we're looking at adding is a non-mandatory fee called international recruitment fee. And Keith, do you want to talk about that a little bit? That's a fee that is particular to our international students.
I think that's actually the next agenda item.
Okay, I'll go see.
Well, it's still part of that same agenda item.
You want me to? Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
so
Just
happy
come
to
on.
explain that piece of it.
So this, so this fee here that we're proposing, we recruit students from around the world, and we use an agent model to do so. And so we rely on a network of agents throughout the world that identify, qualify, and send students to us. And a number of institutions do similar. Well, what we've discovered is that the agent fees that we pay, they're competitive in developing economies. And in fact, our Tier 2 tuition was built around that concept for students from developing economies and would afford us to pay those agents accordingly. But it is not competitive in developed economies. And so we are not competitive through the agent structure for those students, because each country obviously has a different marketplace and different fees that the agents would expect. And so what we are proposing is a fee that would be charged to international students, depending on their country of origin and depending on what is required of the agents in order to send us the students. And so essentially, as Dr. Fillet said, it is a pass-through fee where the student would be covering the cost of the agent in the more developed economies that our Tier 2 won't allow for.
Good. Thank you all very much.
She's not done.
Not done yet.
Oh.
So one of the things I wanted to point out to you is kind of how we're, the numbers behind these fee increases. So right now we're looking at a $1.2 million appropriation reduction. That is the Senate bill right now, is $1 million cut, and then we would lose another $250,000 on health insurance. So overall, we have to absorb a $1.2 million cut in the monies that the university receives from the state. What we're proposing, the 2.5% increase on the USF, will offset that. So pretty much we'd be flat. We are looking at $1.4 million of funding that we would make cuts to, reallocations, do things differently to give us about $1.4 million that we could use for other things.
Could I just need to correct that for one moment,
Okay.
please. You're always right, except in this statement.
Okay, sorry.
It was really, really, really important to me that tuition not offset that.
Okay.
Okay, so, although this is the reduction by the state we're looking at, we really wanted our students to know that Marilyn and her great team got to work, and we covered that. So the second number you see there is our imposing on ourselves, restricting our costs to offset the tuition, the allocations that is being reduced by the state. Because we didn't want anyone to go out and say, well, because the state's not funding us, my daughter, my son has to pay more. We wanted to take it very seriously, that if the state funds us less, we need to try to do less or do more with less. And so it was an exercise that she oversaw with the Budget Oversight Committee, and we struggled with it, but we're very proud of the fact that we made that reduction. And now she's going to show you, and she's already talked about what we're doing with the tuition, but go ahead.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's you can flip it around. The dollars all add up to be the same. Basically, what we're looking at is trying to have a zero impact with some of the things that we want done, which mandatory expense increases, the health insurance, the software maintenance agreements, those kind of things is about $400,000. The pay raises that I've talked about is $800,000, and then there's some other priority kinds of things that's about $300,000. So the net effect when you throw it all in the mix is zero. So we should have a balanced budget. That's the goal, and hopefully that the appropriation cut, that's hopefully the worst case scenario. We're hoping that it might improve. We just won't know for the next couple of weeks. If it does, then we've got a nice priority list that our Budget Oversight Committee has established that we'll just start working down the list then. And there's some really important things on there we'd love to do, but right now the funding isn't going to be there to do all of that. Okay, any other questions? I think that's it.
Well, I have no problem with this, but I have a concern. And when Governor Perry a few years ago launched his initiative to be able to go to a state sports school with a locked-in tuition rate for 4 years, are we going to be criticized for doing an end run around that initiative? That's my only concern. I don't think there's a better solution, but.
Right.
Do we know?
I think Regent Greg makes a good point.
Yeah.
We could be, yes.
Do we know what other institutions are doing?
It's all over the board. Debbie might be able to tell us more from being in the halls of the legislature.
No, some of them had already set. They've done 2-year tuition, and it really just depends on the system. I know there was a freeze at the A&M system.
For tuition and fees?
I do not know.
We probably should poke around on that a little bit.
The CFOs, we have our meeting, and I know like U of H systems are 1.8, UNT was 3.9.
So when you mention those, Marilyn, that has to be fee increases because of the tuition freeze.
No, they can go up on tuition. We chose not to.
Oh.
Yeah, because we believe that they're going to come back and freeze tuition and fees.
Understand.
And we're
Okay.
going to have
Get
to
it.
go backwards
Okay.
next year, so
Right.
we were trying to spread it across all the areas so it's easier to go back.
The reason I'm poking on it is that I think it's important for us to understand what others are doing in the marketplace. But I really like what you guys have done. I would suggest that we do what Dr. Shipley has recommended, flip that number around so we make sure that we show that way. Because one of the first things I asked Dr. Shipley when we were talking through the agenda was, where did we cut costs? That's the first question I asked. And I think that you guys have done a fantastic job of doing that. But likewise, I wouldn't mind getting a little more detail around some of these expenses, both the increases and the decreases, so that I can better understand where we've done that, and not just for me, but for others you might present this to down the road.
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to know too, and it doesn't have to be today, is this is based on how many students. I mean, because clearly that variable will affect our revenue and expenses as we go into the next academic year.
Of that 1.2 million that we were showing an increase, about 250 is additional students
Okay.
that we're estimating.
And if that goes up, then that number goes up. Okay. All right.
And let me say, the only reason I don't think we're opening ourselves up to that much criticism, the bill that finally passed only said that we had to offer students a tuition 4-year guarantee. So all of the other universities, A&M had done something similar to us, but they only offer. They also, so students have a choice of being locked in just for tuition, not fees, for 4 years, or they pay the regular rate. A&M did that at the very beginning, but now they've moved away from it. So we really have offered a better deal for our students by guaranteeing their tuition for 4 years, and the fees never played a part into it. So I think we have gone the extra mile, and then not increasing it for our freshmen and still guaranteeing it for 4 years, I think is a big
If A&M
plus.
has walked away from it, then are we the only university in the state that's still doing it?
UT Dallas, I think, still does it as a mandatory.
How can they do that outside the UT system? Because the UT system as a whole is not doing it, are they?
The UT system is doing a 2-year approval process, so I think that's
Everybody's
common.
kind of mixed
They
up there.
kind of do what they want, but they get their approvals every 2 years. They do it for 2 years at a time.
I think
so
what
I would
we
have come
have
to
is a
you
good.
in 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
And
All
UT
right.
Dallas was doing it before it was even
Okay.
law, so
Gotcha.
that's,
All right.
they're doing it.
Any other questions, comments?
Well, it seems to me somewhat anomalous that you're talking about a guaranteed deal, but when that was instituted, there wasn't any question about freezing tuition either.
No.
So, it's not apples to apples.
Okay. Before we discuss any further, could I have a motion to approve these fee changes as presented?
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion?
I'd like to make a comment since
Yep.
Dr. Given Linwood isn't
Yeah, it proxy.
You almost feel like, I'm sure he didn't give somebody a proxy to be able to speak or vote against it, but we should acknowledge his presence, and likely he would be speaking against this. So in that favor, I say I'm in favor of it.
Point well taken, Kevin. All right, we have a motion second. All in favor? I heard an opposition, motion carried. And, Mr. Chairman, we understand you have a few comments about the budget.
Yes, so last month, there was a request for feedback whether or not we would want to attend the budget workshop. 3 of the regions indicated that they would like to attend the yearly workshop, so because this budget process is currently on hold, the appropriations bill, until it's finalized, I think what the administration is proposing that they offer a time for the 3 members or others who want to attend, because obviously it's open if you want to. It's been fantastic when we did have it, is that we do it the Thursday morning of our August board meeting. By then we'll know all the information and really give everybody an opportunity to attend. So that's kind of the way it's set up right now. If you're interested in attending, let Debbie know, because the number of attending Regents will determine where the workshop's located. Last time we had a pretty good turnout, and so a massive space, which was pretty phenomenal. So if you do, please let her know so that we can plan accordingly. Any questions about the workshop or the timing? So I guess what we can do right now, why don't we just by show of hands who's going?
Weeks.
And that way we can just, if you're going, raise your hand and we can plan that way.
Well, we'll just start our meeting early on that morning. If you can come, that's great, and we'll just have an open meeting discussion about it.
Perfect. So I'll turn that back over to you, Jeff. That's all I have.
That's what, Mr. Chairman, That concludes our business, so I'll turn it back over to you.
So we're gonna move on to the audit compliance and management review committee, Ms. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Audit, Compliance, and Management Review Committee will now come to order. Members of the committee here today are Mr. Gregg and Mr. Hessing. Don't fight over who's gonna move.
We can do this.
We got this.
The first item, 17-104, is the approval of the minutes of the committee meeting held February 9, 2017. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they stand approved as presented. Item 17-105, potential conflict of interest disclosure and compliance with Ethics Commission filing requirements. Every year during our May meeting, each regent, other than the student regent, is asked to confirm in writing that they have received notification of the state and university ethics policies and have filed a personal financial statement with the Texas Ethics Commission as required by state law. An acknowledgement form has been sent to each of you. Another copy is in your folder for your signature. Please sign, give it to Debbie at your earliest convenience. Additionally, does anyone wish to disclose any potential conflicts of interest in accordance with Policy 2.25, Ethics Policy for the Board of Regents? With no comments, thank you. No further action is required at this time. Item 17-106, Compliance Activities Update. An update on compliance activities since the last board meeting was prepared by Mr. Stovall, and he's here to provide information if necessary. Are there any questions regarding the report? This item is presented as a point of information only and no action is necessary. Item 17-107, Audit Activities Update. Ms. Kidwell prepared an update on audit activities since the last board meeting, and she's here to provide information as needed. If there are any questions regarding this report? No questions? Then this item is presented as a point of information only and no action is necessary.
Tiffany, I do have a quick question.
Okay.
Do you feel like you are caught up now? It's a loaded question, I get it. Better caught up at this point?
Yes, absolutely. So there are a few remaining items that will be prepared in the next few months in order to have them ready for our 2017 peer review, which I'm planning on having late August, early September.
Okay.
I have the fun items left, like finishing a policy and procedures manual and setting up an internal quality assurance improvement program. That's all that's left from that long list.
Perfect. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Sorry, Tiffany.
No, that's okay. Any other questions?
That's it. That's all I had.
Item 17-108, Review of Procurement Card Policies and Control. Ms. Kidwell's report on this review is presented in the board book. Lee has asked for board action to accept the report as presented. She is here. I should have asked you to stay at the table, just in case, to provide additional information as needed. Before we discuss this item, could I have a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Are there any questions for Lee or any discussion?
Yeah, how big a problem is this? I mean, the conclusions and recommendations say we cover a wide range of violations. So how big a deal is this?
Are you asking number-wise or dollar-wise?
Both.
Medium. There are defined major non-compliance. Dollars were not large. The dollars were not large, but there were significant non-compliance with policies and protocols. So that's reflected in the number of recommendations and management action items that are listed in this report.
How much of that is intentional as opposed to unintentional? Can you tell?
The majority is unintentional.
That's a good answer.
Were the dollar amounts reflective? So when you look at those, I know you said that they were small. When you look at something that's unintentional as intentional, did that correspond or correlate to the dollar amount as well?
Yes, it did. The largest item that concerned me for the risk the university faces every month is when you look at the total dollar amount times the number of employees who have these cards, their charge amount each month comes to over $1 million if every employee charged the maximum every month. And that's too large of a risk for the university, and that's why it was the number one listed concern in this report.
Has there been presented something in consideration about changing that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We will make those changes as soon as this report is accepted, and we're going to roll out the new training and reduce those limits both in the single charge amount transaction as well as the monthly charge limits allowed for employees.
So you're gonna be monitoring the amount of spending and then adjust it accordingly, if needed?
Well, actually, the Director of Procurement Contract Management has already analyzed the amounts actually charged, and then based on the role each employee has, a recommended lower amount will be discussed with the appropriate Vice President and then reduced accordingly.
So steps are being taken.
Already, yes, sir.
Okay, so one other question. We talked about the unintentional.
Yes.
I'm all about the intentional. So was there any kind of consequence, or was there any action taken? Could we discern the actors of the intentional? And are we doing anything about that?
Yes, steps have been taken. Both the intentional and the unintentional actions have been addressed and corrected.
Okay.
Well, it may seem from our comments that we're making this a bigger deal than it really is.
No, it is a
But
big deal.
in my experience with clients and everything, that's really a problem. I mean, there's a lot of people that, and there's a tendency not to give it the oversight that's needed.
You're correct.
Any other discussion?
It sounds like to me we're all over this and that steps are being taken. So I'd be can we get a follow-up report?
Absolutely.
Okay.
How often would you like one? Every
I tell you what, I at least from my view, I would like to get an update when you think enough action has been taken as far as policy change and behavior that you can give the board an update that makes sense. I don't want one every meeting because then you're just beating. Yeah.
I would be happy to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
I take your finger as an aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 17-109, Information Resources, Use, and Security Policy Agreement. The proposed agreement is shown in the board book and is presented for approval. This new agreement meets the requirements of the Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 202. Jim Hall, our Chief Information Security Officer, and Dr. Foley are available to answer any questions related to this item. Before we discuss this item, could I have a motion to approve the agreement?
So moved.
Second?
Second. My bad.
Is there any discussion?
I just have a question. Again, is this a housekeeping issue? I mean, I know we've touched on this in the past, but I assume this is from some mandates that brought down by the state. Is that correct?
It's directly addressing TAC 202 and the requirements of the controls, and then this family adopted by TAC 202.
Okay, all right. And so we're just getting in compliance with that? Yes. Okay. That's all I have.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 17-110, MSU Policies and Procedures Manual Changes. Item A includes changes to the key authorization policy to eliminate the maximum fee that can be charged per incident and also update certain titles and references. Are there any questions regarding this policy change? Item B is a new policy, conflict of interest, conflict of commitment in outside employment and activities. This new policy was developed to comply with Senate Bill 20, which was passed by the 84th Legislature. Ms. Kidwell will present this item, and Mr. Maka is also available to answer any questions. Ms. Kidwell.
Thank you. This new policy, conflict of interest, conflict of commitment, is one of the many that were recommended out of the Senate Bill 20. Dr. Carlston alluded to the numerous conversations and collaboration. This will affect all staff, all faculty, and officers. And it provides the transparent system of disclosure, approval, and documentation of all employment and outside activities, and it serves to ensure compliance with state ethics laws and university policies, and is intended to provide the framework to clearly delineate the permissible outside employment activities, including board service. And it does recognize the common practice of holding more than one job due to needs, interest, or development. The employment and participation in outside activities is encouraged and permitted as long as it does not interfere with university duties and responsibilities or create a conflict of interest or commitment. Faculty Senate, Staff Senate, Administrative Council, and now we're presenting this policy to the board.
Are there any questions for Lee or for Barry?
What was the basic source of this policy? I mean, if Barry or y'all are like me, I know you didn't just sit down and prop your feet up and start dictating this.
Well, you don't know how Barry works.
I suspect that you had some others to look at, so.
We did. We looked at some other universities and looked at UT Austin, but as Dr. Carlston said, this was vetted, and we took bits and pieces of the policies, and it may have primarily been UT Austin's, but we looked at the others as well and made it work for our university. It's not completely like any other university because it's vetted with the faculty and the administration and staff as well. So it's kind of a compilation.
So is it fair to say that everybody's taking their best shot at this now and is comfortable with it, but at least at the pre-implementation stage?
I think that's fair, but it's also, as Dr. Carlson said, we'll revisit it in a year to make sure that it's, there's no doubt that there'll probably be some areas that we may need to tweak, may need to adjust, but I'm very confident about the policy and that we've developed, and as Lee and Dr. Carlson both mentioned, this is about Senate Bill 20, and this is in compliance with Senate Bill 20. To get into compliance with Senate Bill 20, which mandated this, and so, again, mandated it, didn't tell us how to do it, just said you will do it, and so, again, we did that by looking around to see what the other schools did and what would work best for this university, and so I feel very confident with what we've done.
Well, it looked good to me, so I'm glad to hear the background for it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Thank you. Item C is a new information resources use and security policy to bring us into compliance with Texas Administrative Code Chapter 202. Mr. Hall will present this item, and Dr. Foley is also available if you all have any questions.
This is an overarching policy that will meet all of the TAC 202 requirements. Jim worked with Barry Maka to ensure that it does meet all the requirements. It's also been vetted through all the governance groups for their approval. If you remember last meeting, we talked about we would have to have like 20 policies that we'd have to keep coming back to you. And so since that time, we've been able to, Jim's done a lot of work, and he's gotten it down to the single kind of overarching policy for you. Once this policy is approved by the board, Jim will move on to create a handbook, a security and information security handbook. The handbook will be developed over the summer, and then be shared and worked on with the governance groups as well when they come back in the fall, and then it will be vetted through those groups. That handbook can also be brought back to you if you wish for review and approval. It's up to the board if they would like to do that. It's going to be, according to Jim, it's going to be. So highlights of this policy include acceptable use, security awareness training, data classification. And so we'll be updating this policy yearly for you and bring it back to you with any changes. And so Jim's here to answer any of the more specific questions, technical questions you may have. And he's done a lot of work on this, so very fluent in what's needed to meet the requirements.
I see no reason to reinvent the wheel.
Well, I have one question. I mean, obviously there's a lot of potential penalties associated with data breaches, with inadvertent disclosures by entities like ours. Part of this policy talks about guests and all individuals, including like lease, like I guess individuals who are leasing space for us. And so how, I guess, there's a methodology. I'm not an IT guy, but I'm sure that that we've got mechanisms in place already to kind of safeguard that information.
Yeah.
Because the last time we did an IT assessment, it didn't go so great.
Yeah.
And so we've addressed all those concerns, and at this point, we're compliant. We feel like all the security breaches that were available, including like the physical access to that, all those have been addressed.
We are working towards specific compliance. The back-end pieces, the technology is there. People that come in to use our resources, who connect to our wireless network and the guest network, are completely segmented away from any of our protected faculty and staff and student subnets. So there is that separation capability that's already there. What we're working on now is getting documentation in place, documented procedures, repeatability, and disaster recovery pieces that are the big foundational building blocks of good IT security.
And is there a training mechanism or a training portion that will apply to the students? Because from my understanding, they're really like the most susceptible group at actually opening us to exposure. Is that part of it?
Our security awareness training vendor that we use for the faculty and staff have provided us with a home course that we can provide in B2L classes and things like that for free to our students. And I've mailed that to the campus last year. I can mail it again. It's pretty comprehensive, and it's all video based. It's written by Kevin Mitnick, who was probably the world's most notorious hacker in the 90s, and has now turned white and is training people how to defeat people like himself.
So is there like a mechanism where we're able to see like that somebody accessed that, they actually saw it, or is it something that they just get it, it's in spam, I ignored it, I moved on?
On the faculty and staff side, for the TAC 202 compliance piece of it, we have tracking, we have records of completion and sign off on the completion of the courses, and there's a test at the end. There's not on a student side. We don't have that same kind of requirement for trackable information gathering.
Any other questions? Could I have a motion to accept the policy changes and additions as presented in A, B, and C?
I so move.
A second.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Just one final comment, if I may, before I close out. I think you all know from the years that we've been discussing audit and compliance that this is a very important part of ensuring the safety and limiting the risks and protecting the university. While talking with Lee this week, she's let me know that she's about to start working on an audit plan for next year. And if you or any members of the board feel like there's an issue that might open us up to some type of risk, I think Lee would really like to know those things so that she can include that in her audit plan so that she can present it to the board when she's completed. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the business before this committee.
Well, thank you, Ms. Burks. The committee as a whole the Academic Student Affairs Committee will now reconvene. The Board of Regents will go into executive session to discuss item 17-73A, consultation with attorney regarding legal matters and pending and/or contemplated litigation. 17-73B, real property. 17-73D, personnel matters. 17-73E, deliberations regarding security audits. 17-90, faculty emeritus status. 17-91, faculty promotions. And 17-92, faculty allowed by Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 072, 074, and 076. For the record, the date is May 11th, 2017, and the time is
4:34.
4:34. Dr. Shipley, Mr. Maka, Ms. Farrow, Ms. Kibble. All right. The closed session is complete. The only items that were discussed were items announced and no votes were taken. The Committee of the Whole will resume an open session. Item 17-73B, real property. Is there a motion related to this item?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board authorize the president to work with the chairman of the board to finalize and execute the ground lessors agreement related to MSU property leased to the YMCA of Wichita Falls.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7.
4 abstentions.
We
4
abstain.
abstentions. Thank you. Item 17-73D, extension of the president's contract. I move that the term of Dr. Shipley's contract be extended by 1 year effective September 1st, 2017 through August 31st, 2020. Can I have a second? Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The Committee of, well,
No, you're good.
I'm good.
They're making faces.
Okay, the Committee of the Whole is now adjourned. We'll now return to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Ms. Marcus.
All right, item 17-90, emeritus status.
I recommend the following individuals be granted emeritus status upon their retirement from MSU. Dr. Rodney Cate, Professor of Chemistry, 39 years. Dr. Robert Clark, Professor of Sociology, 44 years. Dr. Jesse W. Rogers, Professor of Chemistry, 48 years. Ms. Elizabeth Yarzal Ash, Professor of Art and Painting, 36 years.
Is there a motion concerning this item?
I just made it.
Sorry, is there
Oh,
a second?
is there a second?
Second.
That's you, Shelley.
Any discussion?
No, I'm sorry. I can't.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion?
Who's on first?
All in favor? Please
Aye.
say aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item 17-91, faculty promotions. I recommend the following individuals for promotion from the rank of assistant professor to associate professor. Jesse Carlucci, PhD, Geoscience. Todd Giles, PhD, English. Terry Griffin, PhD, Computer Science. Jane Leach, PhD, Nursing. Christina McIntyre, PhD, Curriculum and Learning. Stacy Miller, PhD, Kinesiology. Lynette Watts, PhD, Radiologic Science. Ray Willis, PhD, Biology. Bradley Wilson, DPA, Mass Communication. From the rank of Associate Professor to Professor. Adam Lay, PhD, Finance. Michelle Knox, PhD, Mathematics. Catherine Prose, MFA, Art. Jinghua Chow, PhD, Chemistry. This is in the form of a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in, okay, is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item 17-92, faculty tenure.
I recommend the following individuals be granted tenure. Jesse Carlucci, PhD, Geosciences. Todd Giles, PhD, English. Terry Griffin, PhD, Computer Science. Matthew Luttrell, DMA, Music. Christina McIntyre, PhD, Curriculum and Learning. Stacia Miller, PhD, Kinesiology. Kathleen Williamson, PhD, Nursing. Ray Willis, PhD, Biology. And Bradley Wilson, DPA, Mass Communication.
All right, this came in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. That concludes the business of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Marks. Well, that concludes our meeting today, and I thank you for your participation. We look forward to seeing you guys at dinner. Our meeting will resume at 9 a.m. tomorrow.